What's the situation? Lu Ziju had not completely responded in time before he felt a pain on his head and suddenly his body uncontrollably fell from behind. A pong sound was heard and his body seemed to fly out at a slanted angle, just happening to ram straight into a rising pole. As reflux from this pole's uprising surge of power, his whole body was thrown upwards again and at an arc, he flew in the middle of the sky and continued to descend downward. This time, he had coincidentally fell onto the second pole and this pole, not knowing when, also started to rise and he had once again thrown up into the sky. Lu Ziju's luck seemed to be down in the dumps as he had once again descended but yet to be thrown upwards. Again and again. Every single collision, he had robustly rammed onto the pole as it gave out a dull banging sound. Following that was Lu Ziju's miserable shrieks. Just hearing his shrieks was able to make one imagine how heavily he had banged onto the poles. Such a heavy impact and how serious the injury was simply made one's heart trembled. But as this happened too suddenly, no one could respond in time. It was until Lu Ziju had rammed onto the third pole when the cries of surprise was heard from outside the array. Heavens, what happened? Had Lu Ziju been sent flying by Ruoli? Isn't the Plum Blossom Dome young Master Lu's speciality? How did he lose to that small country's lass? Earlier, how did Ruoli strike? Did you see it? Just a simple kick and she was able to send young Master Lu flying? No one was able to answer this question. Everyone had guessed for quite some time before they suddenly realized that Lu Ziju had not landed on the ground and was still continuously bouncing in between the different poles. What situation is this? Heavens, I can see young Master Lu throwing up blood in the middle of the sky. Yuan Zhayu was also in a daze from what he saw. He had already expected the possibility of Lu Ziju losing but since he had already lost, but he could not descend onto the ground, so what was this? He went into a short daze before he heard the cries from the surrounding and suddenly regained his senses as he hurriedly called out, "Men, hurry up, go and switch off the array. Switch it off right now." The array master at the Yuan residence hurriedly turned off the array and Lu Ziju finally fell straight downwards from the last pole. Yuan Zhayu flew upwards and caught him in his arms personally. He took a look and realized that Lu Ziju had already passed out. On his face were greenish and purplish bruises and Yuan Zhayu touched a few places on his body only to discover that 10 over pieces of his ribs were broken, and he had sustained a serious internal injury. The thing that he was most worried about had happened. Lu family's young master had suffered a serious injury at his place, so Yuan family would have a hard time explaining about this. Yuan Zhayu hurriedly called out, "Quickly summon the best doctors to our residence. Then go to our storage and get the best medicinal pills here." At this present moment, everything was a flurry and everyone were shocked by Lu Ziju's look. Practitioners were bound to get injured during tournaments and injuries which were more serious than this was commonly seen. But the one who was injured now was Lu Ziju, the top exponent who had lost only to Yuan Zhayu. When he was in Celestial Light Academy, only he threw punches at others, who had dared to do it to him. Or it was to say, who had the capability to hurt him. But now, he was fixed to such a terrible state. At this moment, a crisp voice was heard from above everyone's heads. "I say, what's the situation now? Have I already won this battle? Isn't young Master Yuan this battle's judge? Why aren't you announcing the result? Are you expecting me to keep standing on the Plum Blossom Dome in a daze? You can also listen on." The crowd all raised their head in a daze as they suddenly recalled that they had forgotten about someone in the Plum Blossom Dome. Huang Yueli had already removed the black blindfold on her face. She stood on the tallest pole of the Plum Blossom Dome and looking downwards, her expression had a faint smile as she overlooked at everyone. She stood against the light and a blinding ray of sunlight shone from her back, as though her figure was coated with a layer of gold, silhouetted against her peerless beauty. It was as if an immortal being had descended. In a single moment, everyone was in a daze. Yuan Zhayu took several glances at her and it was until Huang Yueli raised her brows unhappily before he regained his senses and said, Right, it's my negligence. The winner of this battle is Ruoli." The result was clear to all with no doubts at all, but the minute the result was announced, it still caused a huge stir. The reason was because many of them did not see clearly how did Huang Yueli managed to defeat Lu Ziju. This is counted as young Master Lu's loss? Many of them bore a vacant expression. Then, what can he do? Bai Ruoli is standing up there in good shape, whereas young Master Lu had already fallen down, and fallen to such a bad extent. It seems that he had suffered a serious injury, so even if he refuses to admit his defeat, he absolutely has no way to continue with this battle. But, isn't this unjustly for him? Young Master Lu obviously had the absolute advantage earlier. That Bai Ruoli was just lucky, so how did she just win so easily? Young Master Lu is just too unlucky. A few female students who secretly admired young Master Lu grieved and lamented for him as they felt it was an unjustified result. That's right. At the beginning, she was just running about blindly, and if it wasn't for the fact that the pole just happened to descend, she would probably have rammed into it head-on. And when young Master Lu struck, the pole suddenly descended again, which helped her big time. Otherwise she would definitely had fallen down. How was it possible that she would have the chance to attack young Master Lu then? Correct, she is just too lucky. Young Master Lu is just too Sigh. Earlier, although he was struck, but he obviously had an opportunity to stabilize himself and battle once again. It was all because of those few damned poles. How could it be so coincidental to have sent him flying once and again? Bai Ruoli had really gained a huge advantage this time. The few of them had insisted that the real reason why Huang Yueli was about to win was purely because of luck. Based on the majority's ability and scope of understanding the world, they totally could not imagine that someone was able to grasp the operation of how a fifth-tier array worked, understanding how those plum blossom domes extended and contacted, and using the ever-changing rhythm to easily defeat the opponent. Huang Yueli flew down from the plum blossom dome and turned delicately right in front of Yuan Zheyu. Yuan Zheyu's expression seemed slightly complicated, but the gaze which he used to look at her couldn't mask the admiration which he had for her. He really had not expected that Huang Yueli could so easily defeat Lu Ziju. This only meant that she not only had an outstanding innate talent, but it also meant that she had brains, and including that sweet and gentle looks. Yuan Zheyu felt that he was deeply enchanted by her. Only she, the cream of the crop, was suitable for him. As compared to the other large family's daughters, they were all plain Yanes. Miss Bai, congratulations on obtaining victory. Since you have defeated Lu Ziju, your ranking in martial arts stage has considerably taken a step forward. Just barely 2 weeks from entering the academy and you've already become the martial arts stage rank number 3. Your achievements are more than enough to leave a record in Celestial Light Academy's history. You can also listen on. Yuan Zheyu spoke earnestly, but Huang Yueli didn't thought much of it. I'm not interested at all in some martial arts stage ranking. I'm only concerned about one matter: can I take away the stakes which I had won now? The minute she asked, those present started to quieten down. Yuan Zheyu's face was filled with hesitation. Huang Yueli's brows creased as she replied in annoyance, what does young Master Yuan mean? We had agreed on this previously, don't tell me that you're regretting it now. Yuan Zheyu had yet to say a word when the surrounding crowd started to shout. What right do you have to take away young Master Lu's divine martial record? You're able to win today's battle purely because of luck, isn't it? If it wasn't for your dog-s asterisk at luck, you'd already had fallen, breaking all your bones and forget about winning this battle. That's right. Isn't it all because of your luck? To win based on luck, you should secretly be happy. How could you still be so thick-skinned and request to take away young Master Lu's cultivation method? That's right, young Master Lu is just unlucky to have fallen for no reason. So if his cultivation method was also taken away from him, then it's be so unjustified for him. Huang Yueli turned around and her icy gaze swept across. Those few who had been crying out the most severe met with her icy cold gaze and totally did not dare to meet her eyes as they shut up their mouths in guilt. Huang Yueli sneered as she looked towards Yuan Zheyu once again. Why? Young Master Yuan appears so hesitantly. Could it be that you also feel that I had won the battle purely because of luck and has no right to claim the stakes which I had won? Yuan Zheyu shook his head immediately as he responded, I don't think in that way. There is no such thing as coincidental in this world. Moreover, a win is a win, a loss is a loss. What's it got to do with coincidental or non-coincidental? Looks like young Master Yuan is considered understanding. Since that's the case, quickly hand me the item which Lu Ziju had stakes because I'm preparing to head back to Celestial Light Academy to cultivate. Huang Yueli replied. Ugh, this. Miss Bai, can we have a private discussion? Yuan Zhayu entered another round of hesitation as he still didn't brought out the divine martial record. Huang Yueli's face sunk. Young Master Yuan, what is the meaning of this? Since you've already acknowledged my victory, then one must accept the loss when one loses. Since he had bet the stakes but not willing to honor it, is that how the large families in Sky Cloud City handle things? Why is there a need to have a private discussion? Whatever you want to say, just say it out right now clearly. Yuan Zhayu had an expression which showed that he was in a difficult position. He looked at Huang Yueli and looked towards Lu Ziju, who was lying on the soft mattress, as he sighed in resignation. Miss Bai, I know you have outstanding innate talent, so you are proud and arrogant. But you are, however, still too young and have not understood certain matters. Under this earth, it's not only a matter of winning and losing or right and wrong. There are still a lot of other things to consider. Although this round, you've already won and have more than enough reason to take away the divine martial record, but have you ever thought of this? Lu Ziju had a battle with you and sustained such heavy injury. If this matter were to leak out, then Lu family would be completely in rage. To appease the Lu family's rage is not an easy matter, and if you still insist on taking away their secret cultivation method, have you ever considered what the Lu family will do? They will absolutely not let you off easily. Huang Yueli heard his earnest and well-meaning advice as her lips curled upwards into a curve which mimicked a ridicule. Young Master Yuan, I understand your meaning perfectly. It's good that you understand. Yuan Zhayu heaved a long sigh of relief. But, so what? Huang Yueli continued her words on with indifference. You can also listen on. What? Yuan Zhayu started to doubt his own ears. Huang Yueli continued answering him in a calm and collected manner. Young Master Yuan, you heard me correctly. I am very grateful for your well-intended reminders, but since I've won the battle, then taking the stake away is what I'm entitled to. I'm not concerned about what the Lu family will do, I'm only concerned about getting the things which I should get. How can you not distinguish between the severity of this matter? Yuan Zhayu started to become displeased. The power of Sky Cloud City's large families is not something that you can imagine. One of the old ancestors of the Lu family had even been Celestial Light Sect's sect master. Ordinary people are not able to offend this kind of large family. If you really are going to take away the divine martial record, then even I will have no way to protect you. Huang Yueli smiled as she replied, Thank you, but I did not seem to mention ever that I require Yuan family's protection, right? Young Master Yuan, please rest assured that once I step out of Yuan Residence's main door, my matter would be of no concern to you. So now, can you pass me the divine martial record? Yuan Zhayu frowned as he stared intently at the young lady who had a charming smile on her face as his heart stirred into a bout of frustration. He really wanted to woo Huang Yueli, so all the more he couldn't allow her to offend Lu family. Lu family had always been the first to shield their people and was well known to be unreasonable. But this lass was just one-track mind, totally unable to twist and turn and completely ignoring his advice. Huang Yueli stretched out her delicate arm as she raised it upwards, waiting for Yuan Zhayu to hand her the cultivation method. Yuan Zhayu clenched his teeth as he tried to persuade further. How about this, Miss Bai, you've indeed won. So let you return empty-handed is indeed not right. I shall personally compensate you 100,000 upper-grade spirit stones as compensation. When Huang Yueli heard what he said, she was stunned. You want to give me money? Yuan Zhayu replied, Divine martial record is a cultivation method which trains the body. You're not intending to go into this line of training, so it's impossible for you to cultivate anyway. So after you get this, you'd probably sell it off at the auction house for money. An earth-grade cultivation method's original value is a few 100,000 upper-grade spirit stones. Moreover, this is something which Lu family had lost, so even if you brought it to the auction house, most probably no one would dare to accept it. Since that's the case, why not give me some face and sell it to me at a discounted pricing? How about it? Huang Yueli's brows rose in surprise. Young Master Yuan, Why are you doing this? Yuan family is the #1 large family in Sky Cloud City, so surely you shouldn't be worried of the Lu family to such an extent, right? Yuan Zhayu stared at her eyes, and seeing that she totally don't treat it as a matter, his heart started to turn anxious and flustered. He couldn't help but blurt out, "Miss Bai, why would I be scared of the Lu family? I'm doing this all for you. Why can't you understand? If you are really short of spirit stones or any suitable cultivation methods, I can help you. But you'd better not offend the Lu family. Listen to me, I don't harm you, so let this matter rest now." This conversation was just too direct, and many of them had understood what he meant. Surely it cannot be true. Young Master Yuan really took a liking to Bai Ruoli. How can it be fake? But this Miss Bai has such ability and looks, so even if young Master Yuan takes a liking to her, it is also considered normal, right? I'm so envious of her. Why does young Master Yuan treat her so well? He already thought on her behalf and even initiated to give her spirit stones just so that she does not offend the Lu family. Huang Yueli heard his passionate intention but only smiled with a ridicule, totally not taking it to heart. This successor of Sky Cloud City's #1 large family had really treated himself as Don Juan. You can also listen on. It was just the first time they met, and he had this look which seemed like totally devoted to her, as though she was an innocent young lady who had never seen the world. She was very clear what went on in a man's mind. It was purely because he had seen her outstanding ability and exceeding innate talent which he felt was of value to him. The so-called admiration, rather than calling it admiration towards her, it might as well be labeled as the admiration towards her value. Moreover, the proposal which he raised was even laughable. A high-grade cultivation method manual which was worthy of becoming a family heirloom was only worth 100,000 of upper-grade spirit stones. Who was he trying to bluff? Yuan Ziyu's idea, to be blunt, was still forcing her to back down. The only difference was retreating from 100 steps, had now become retreating a total of 99 steps only. If he really wanted to help her, he should directly give her the cultivation method. No matter how strong Lu family's stance was, as compared to Yuan family, there still should have been some huge difference. So in the end, Yuan Ziyu's consideration was still on his own benefits. He hoped that he would not offend any side. On one hand, he wanted to win a favorable impression from Huang Yueli, but he didn't want to offend the Lu family from marrying this legendary figure, which was why he couldn't make up his mind. As compared to Li Moying, who stood by her unwaveringly, Yuan Ziyu was simply too weak for word. If that man was here right now, he would probably had led her to Lu family to wreak havoc long ago. In Huang Yueli's heart, she was very clear of this, so even though Yuan Ziyu put on enamored expression, it could not sway her emotions one bit. But Li Shuer, who had always been following behind Yuan Ziyu, had seen through the selfish nature behind that enamored look which he had been putting on. Seeing that she had finally gained some affection from Yuan Ziyu, but he actually did everything in favor of Huang Yueli, as though he had totally forgotten about her existence as his chaperone. Li Shuer was so angry that she was about to fly into a rage, but as her capability was not adequate, she did not dare to challenge Huang Yueli. At this moment, a thought flashed past her mind as she immediately revealed a sneer. Li Shuer moved swiftly and appeared in front of Yuan Ziyu, speaking out, "Young Master Yuan, stop trying to persuade her. Miss Bai she definitely would not accept your good intentions." However, Yuan Ziyu's heart was totally filled with Huang Yueli and had completely lost interest in Li Shuer. Seeing that she came out so untactfully, he spoke out in an extremely impatient manner, "This is between me and her, it's of no concern to you. Get lost." Li Shuer was so infuriated that she clenched hard on her teeth. When she arrived at the banquet earlier, Yuan Ziyu treated her with the utmost respect and even appeared that he wanted to get more intimate with her. But it hadn't been that long before he turned stern and cold, and this was all because of Huang Yueli. She cried out loudly, "Young Master Yuan, you have to consider this carefully. She already has a fiancé, so she cannot be with you." "What?" Yuan Ziyu's expression changed instantaneously. "What? Already has a fiancé? How is that possible? Is this Li Shuer talking blindly? Even if she wanted to defame someone, she also shouldn't defame in such a manner. Has she been muddled by jealousy? No one believed Li Shui's words because it sounded absolutely ridiculous. As a practitioner's lifespan was very long, their cultivation period during their youths were critical. So generally speaking, they often married in a later stage of their lives, and the more outstanding their innate talent was, the later they would get married. Only large families' descendants would get engaged earlier because they often allied through marriage. Huang Yueli's innate talent was so high and she was still so young. Moreover, she was from a small country. Which man from South Yu Kingdom, that rundown country, was worthy of her? You can also listen on. She was already engaged at such a tender age? What kind of joke was that? Yuan Zheyu calmed down after waves of shock rippled as he thought it could not be true. Li Shui, what nonsense are you sprouting? If you are to run off your mouth in such a careless manner again and offend my valued guest, don't blame me for sending you out of here. He spoke sternly. Li Shui continued in spite of his words, Young Master Yuan, I'm not sprouting nonsense. Bai Ruoli and I both come from South Yu Kingdom, so would I not know her background? Moreover, her fiancé is not just anyone, he's my second brother. This matter is absolutely true and is known throughout my entire South Yu Kingdom. Saying that, she turned towards Huang Yueli, putting on an expression which looked like her heart was aching. Second sister-in-law, my second brother usually treated you well. How could you pretend that you're single the minute you came to Sky Cloud City, thinking to fly up the branches? This simply, shut up dash. Huang Yueli spat out the two words as she unleashed the profound energy within her. Li Shui was just standing by her side and immediately felt her blood raging from her oppression and couldn't speak a single word. Huang Yueli gave a cold harumph. Since when had I not admitted the marriage arrangement? And which eye did you see that I'm hoping to fly up the branches? Li Shui, you must be held responsible for slandering others. You obviously was trying to seduce young Master Yuan. Li Shui took a few steps backwards as she forcefully hissed this sentence out from the gaps of her teeth. A resounding slap landed on her face as Huang Yueli gave her a tight slap. Li Shui's face instantaneously became swollen as she held onto her face, staring unbelievably at Huang Yueli. You. She really had not thought that the minute they had the slightest disagreement, Huang Yueli immediately struck out and hit her. She could not even be bothered to debate any further. What you claimed this earlier. I'm your second sister-in-law. You spoke at will without thinking and sprouted nonsense. You have no upbringing at all. Since your parents and brothers are not here, then I shall educate you on behalf of your second brother. Saying that, she continued slapping Li Shui's face continuously for 10 over times, and Li Shui was totally unable to avoid, and very soon, her face was swollen like a pig head. Huang Yueli intentionally didn't use much strength. Otherwise just one slap of Li Shui's would have sent her flying at least 100 meters and above. When the audience saw a 14, 15 young beauty using a senior position to lecture her sister who apparently was older than her by several number of years, they were all blown away by this. Li Shui felt that her face was so hot as though it was on fire. Huang Yueli was obviously humiliating her on purpose, and she would rather faint rather than stand there and let her slap continuously. Now that so many people were watching her being slapped and berated as though she was lecturing a 3-year-old brat, this had reduced her to a complete laughingstock. In the end, the fury got to her and it caused her to faint as per her wishes. Yuan Zheyu then regained his senses as he stared blankly at Huang Yueli, asking in an unbelievable manner, You really have a fiancé? Huang Yueli nodded. That's right, I indeed have a marriage agreement. Usually she wasn't willing to admit the marriage agreement with Li Moying, but at this moment, using him as a shield wasn't a bad idea after all. How could this be possible? Yuan Zheyu asked in shock. With your innate talent, why would you get engaged in South Yu Kingdom? Your fiancé. What kind of person is he? Huang Yueli smiled, thinking if she really told the truth, it would scare him to death. But she didn't want to make matters bigger than it was already, so she avoided the main points and said simply, Hasn't Li Shui already said it? It's her second brother. Li Shui is the 7th princess of our South Yu Kingdom and my fiancé is the 2nd prince. You can also listen on. Second prince, Yuan Zheyu revealed an ignorant expression. Although the position of a second prince from a bordering small country sounded big, but most of them had seen the world and naturally knew that this kind of status in soaring heaven's continent was not worth anything at all. A beautiful lady with exceeding innate talent actually got engaged with this kind of character. This totally was illogical. Could it be that Huang Yueli was too young and didn't understood what was going on and was cheated by that honey-mouthed superficial man? Yes, that must be it. This lass was so young and was fixed on cultivation, so she should not have met many real men. Yuan Zheyu thought that he had guessed the truth and hurriedly advised, Miss Bai, as a practitioner, it's too early to get engaged. Moreover, with your innate talent, you should find a man who is worthy of you. How would you get engaged so easily? But no matter, based on your current ability, there's no one who can match up against you, so even if you go back and decline this engagement, no one would be able to stop you. Who said I want to decline this engagement? Young Master Yuan, isn't your scope of concern too wide? I like my fiancé very much and I've decided to only marry him. Huang Yueli bore a face of contempt. But, Miss Bai, Yuan Zheyu wanted to persuade further upon hearing that she obstinately persisted in going about things the wrong way. Huang Yueli had already lost her patience as she spoke curtly, Young Master Yuan, please cut down on the nonsense. Just one word, this divine martial record, are you giving it to me or not? Yuan Zheyu was stunned, not expected her to totally disregard his suggestion, and was only thinking of the stakes earlier. Miss Bai, it's not that I'm intentionally not giving it to you, but, Huang Yueli cut him off abruptly, I understand now, young Master Yuan, stop these nonsense. I challenge you. If you win, I will write off the divine martial record matter. But if you lose, Yuan family will also need to use a set of cultivation method which was of equal value to the divine martial record. The surrounding practitioners broke into a bustle when they heard their exchange. Heavens, Bai Ruoli has gone mad, she actually issued a challenge to young Master Yuan. She had won against young Master Lu purely out of luck and thought she really had the ability to challenge young Master Yuan? She simply hasn't got any self-awareness. I've never seen someone who is unable to tell good from bad. Young Master Yuan is already giving her consideration in all ways and even willing to give her 100,000 upper-grade spirit stones. How much money is that? I've never seen that much spirit stones in my entire life. She actually don't know how to quit while one is ahead. Right, give her an inch and she wants a mile. Why would young Master Yuan like her? She already has a fiancé and she's still getting involved with young Master Yuan. Various voices laid with envy and contempt could be heard. Huang Yueli's gaze was fixated on Yuan Zheyu as she waited for his reply. Yuan Zheyu bore a perplexed expression. Although he didn't believe that he would lose, but he also didn't want to face Huang Yueli with combat, even though he knew that she already had a fiancé, but he had no intention to give up. Because from what Yuan Zheyu saw, a second prince from a neighboring small country was simply a joke, so how was he to snatch his woman from him? Simply a toad lusting after swan's flesh. This kind of rival, he couldn't be bothered with him and would directly disregard him. So Yuan Zhiyu's thinking had not changed at all and he was still insistent on winning Huang Yueli over. If he were to injure his little beauty, then they would become foes in future, so how was he going to be able to woo her successfully? You can also listen on. Miss Bai, don't be so rash. I'm not going to accept your challenge, so for this matter, let's sit down and have a good discussion. As Yuan Zhiyu said that, he shot forward and tried to pull Huang Yueli's hand. Huang Yueli frowned and just as she was attempting to avoid him, whoever knew that she had just took half a step backwards and immediately she bumped into a solid object. She had not expected anything behind her to be obstructing her, so she received a huge shock. But immediately following that, a well-built arm wrapped around her slender waist and brought her into a man's solid embrace. At the same time, Yuan Zhiyu's expression changed as he gave a blood-curdling screech and flew outward. As the unexpected changes was too sudden, no one was able to react in time and the atmosphere became completely silent. Huang Yueli felt a familiar, overbearing, imposing manner charging towards her as she turned around in shock. That incomparably handsome face of Li Moying's appeared right in front of her face. You! Why are you here? Her mouth was slightly agape as she bore a face of shock. Li Moying's perfectly sculpted face was filled with icy cold frost and his gaze was deep and stern. His emotionless thin lips curled upwards and his lower jaw started to tighten. Anyone could tell that his mood was bad, extremely bad. It was even more appropriate to say that it was vile to the extreme. The arm that Li Moying had around her waist tightened even more as he lowered his head and using a possessive attitude, he kissed her lightly on the corners of her lips. This is a banquet to celebrate the start of the school term, so since I'm also a student of Celestial Light Academy, why can't I come? But what status did Li Moying had? He would attend such a boring banquet. Li Moying touched her fair white complexion as his gaze sunk. If I didn't come, how would I know that there's a fly who's been eyeing my woman? Huang Yueli's face started to turn into a deep scarlet red as she was stared at deeply by an ambiguous and passionate gaze. What your woman? She protested softly, which made Li Moying's icy cold expression revealed slight signs of melting. Just at this moment, Yuan Zheyu, who had been sent flying and entering a short round of concussion, suddenly started to regain his consciousness. With the support of his guards who helped to support him up, he clenched his teeth and shouted in anger, "Who are you? What guts you have? How dare you create a scene in our Yuan residence?" Before he could complete his sentence, he suddenly caught a glimpse of Li Moying, who was stuck close behind Huang Yueli, as his word of threat suddenly got stuck right in his throat. Yuan Zheyu was tongue-tied as he saw the sudden appearance of this handsome man, as his heart suddenly trembled and his legs gave way, almost falling onto the ground once again. How was it possible that it was him? The others didn't know Li Moying's real identity, but as the eldest young master of Sky Cloud City's #1 large family, Yuan Zheyu had already gotten word from Principal Jiang on Li Moying's identity. He had even had the honor to battle with him on his first day of appearing at Celestial Light Academy, and had always been proud of this. So he was the only one there who knew that Li Moying was Celestial Light Sect's young sect master. Yo! Young! His voice started to quiver. Li Moying's cold intent swept across to him. Yuan Zheyu suddenly recalled that Principal Jiang had reminded him that young sect master's arrival at Celestial Light Academy was a top secret and he didn't wish to reveal his identity, so he must keep his mouth shut on this. He hastily changed his words. "Sir. Senior brother Li, why have you suddenly come? You can also listen on." When those present heard what he said, they suddenly recalled the identity of this man who had suddenly appeared. "Senior brother Li? Surely it can't be. Could it be that he's the one who just came and had already defeated young Master Yuan to become the martial arts stage #1 ranking senior brother Li? That's right, it's him. I'd seen him from afar once in the crowd. To think that he was already so handsome when I saw him from afar. I'd never expected that he was so handsome up close. His looks will probably incur the wrath of God and anger of men. Heavens, I'm going to faint. But why would senior brother Li? Why did he suddenly appear here and even hug by Ruoli that rightly? Could it be that she and senior brother Li has some relations? It is impossible. How can it be possible? For young Master Yuan to like her, we can forget about it. Senior brother Li is even more handsome and more powerful, so how could he possibly like her? That's just impossible. The female students there all burned their jealous gazes tightly onto the two who were in deep embrace. However, Li Moying's opening sentence shattered all their dreams. "Yuan Zheyu, your guts is not small at all. How dare you have designs on my fiancé? Fiancé." Yuan Zheyu was in a daze as he momentarily didn't catch the gist of what he meant by that word. He followed Li Moying's line of sight and looked towards Huang Yueli, and he responded blankly, "Senior brother Li, the fiancé you mentioned, surely it cannot be. Cannot be Miss by right?" Li Moying held tightly onto Huang Yueli's slender waist as his chilly voice was about to form into icicles. "What do you think? But earlier hadn't Li Shuai said Miss Bai already has a fiancé and he is her second brother? As Yuan Ziyu was talking, he suddenly seemed to think of something as the sweat that formed on his forehead started to drip downwards. Not long ago, his entire body was drenched in sweat. Heavens, why didn't he thought of this? Li Shuai, Li Moying, aren't their surnames all Li? Could it be that young sect master was Li Shuai's second brother and was rumored as Huang Yueli's fiancé? That's right, In the past he had also heard rumors that young sect master was not born in the sect but was brought back from a small country in the south. With both evidences linking up, Huang Yueli's fiancé's identity was portrayed vividly. The more Yuan Ziyu thought, the more afraid he became, and his expression turned so pale as though he was no different from a dead person. Recalling back that he even had the thoughts earlier that this lass's fiancé was definitely some toad lusting after a swan's flesh and had no qualifications to snatch a woman from him, he couldn't wait to use a slap to beat himself to death. Heavens, why was he so dumb and had not thought of this much earlier? Huang Yueli's innate talent was so outstanding and her looks and temperament were so unique. Moreover, her mannerism had the demeanor of an influential family, so it was not possible for her to be a silly goose who would be cheated by any man. How could the man who had entered her eyes be some ordinary person? Thinking back, for her to get engaged at such a tender age, naturally it would be because she had found another peerless talent who was worthy of her to be her fiancé. Unfortunately, he had understood all of these a bit too late. Looking at Li Moying's emotionless and icy cold gaze, Yuan Ziyu really wishes that time would turn back and he had never said such silly word. To have designs on the young sect master's fiancé and to be caught red-handed. Who didn't know the status of Li Moying in Celestial Light sect? Although he was the young sect master, but in actual fact, even sect master Murong had treated this disciple with utmost respect and dared not used any harsh words. This time, since he had offended Li Moying, perhaps he might not even be able to carry on in future. You can also listen on. The more Yuan Ziyu thought, the more afraid he was as he hurriedly tried to explain for himself. Young senior brother Li, this is a misunderstanding, really a misunderstanding. I had not known earlier that Miss Bai was your fiancée. If I had known earlier, even if you killed me, I wouldn't do anything to offend her. Really? Senior brother Li, you have to believe me. Yuan Ziyu couldn't stop explaining, almost to the point of kneeling down and kowtowing. At this moment, he completely disregarded his pride and reputation as Yuan family's eldest young master. He only knew one thing. If Li Moying started to hate him because of this, it would not only be him who would get into deep trouble, even the entire Yuan family might be pulled down into the mud. Li Moying stared at him icily as he replied, "Misunderstanding? Earlier I had heard it with my own ears that eldest young Master Yuan was showing so much concern to my fiancée, even persuading her not to get settled down so early and to quickly return back to our country to withdraw from our marriage agreement. Why? Young Master Yuan seems to think that my Leah and I are not compatible." Earlier when he heard what Yuan Ziyu said, he was so infuriated that he could wait to tear this fellow, who had been sowing discord, apart. If it wasn't for the fact that he had barely recalled that Yuan Ziyu was Celestial Light Sect's elder Yuan's direct grandson, Yuan Ziyu would probably had long become a corpse. Yuan Ziyu was scared stiff, deeply remorseful on what he said earlier. His knees gave way as he finally gave in to the inner terror emotions that filled his heart as he knelt down and explained while trembling. "No. I'm in the wrong. Senior brother Li, I'm wrong. I really didn't know Miss Bai and you were a couple. I thought which senseless guy had wanted to take advantage of Miss Bai. You and Miss Bai are a natural-born couple. No one can be as compatible as you two. Really." On seeing his love rival prowling onto the ground, totally throwing away the thought to compete against each other's abilities, Li Moying's mood started to become slightly better. He spoke in an icy tone, "It's great that young Master Yuan is so understanding." Yuan Ziyu realized that Li Moying was prepared to let him off the hook and he hurriedly added, Yes, senior brother Li, please be rest assured. I will not dare to sprout rubbish in the future." Just in the middle of his words, a voice was heard reporting from the outside of the door. "Eldest young master, my lord has arrived." A middle-aged man dressed in purple-red robe walked quickly along the long corridor. Yuan Ziyu called out in haste, "Father." The person who had walked in was the current family head Yuan Tianhua. Yuan Tianhua bore an expression which seemed like he regretted that Yuan Ziyu didn't live up to his expectations as he stared one look at him and subsequently, he affectionately bowed respectfully towards Li Moying. Young Yuan Ziyu hurriedly cut him off. "Father, I forgot to introduce. This person here is our academy's senior brother Li Moying." Yuan Tianhua went into a short pause but quickly responded as he realized that Li Moying had kept his identity hidden. He intelligently changed his tone. "Young Master Li, I've heard of your good name. I'm Yuan Tianhua. We welcome you for gracing us here at our Yuan residence, and your presence has brought light to our humble dwelling. My son is still young and the things he does is just unreasonable. If he had offended you in any way, please don't take offense. I will definitely teach him a good lesson." The appearance of Yuan Tianhua immediately made the ordinary students excited and surprised. Sky Cloud City's #1 family's leader was an 8th stage realm top exponent and was a person of the highest authority. He seldom showed himself and no one had expected that he actually appeared at their insignificant banquet today. Everyone was discussing quietly and guessing that he had heard Yuan Zheyu being bullied and had specially came to stick up for his son. You can also listen on. In the end, reality was totally out of everyone's expectations. Yuan Tianhua had witnessed his son's serious injury and was still kneeling on the ground, but yet he didn't show any plans of helping him take revenge. Instead, he had a terrified expression on his face as he even talked to Li Moying in a tolerant tone, apologizing humbly and expressing his goodwill. This scene had simply left everyone shocked. Everyone present were not able to regain their senses at that moment. A person like Yuan Tianhua, who controlled one of the largest powers in Sky Cloud City, had actually apologized humbly to a 20-over young man? Moreover, in such a jittery manner, taking caution as though he was afraid that he would continue pursuing this matter. How was this possibly be true? However, no matter how hard they kept rubbing their eyes, the scenario which they saw had not changed at all. Li Moying indifferently swept a glance at Yuan Tianhua and declined to comment. Yuan Zheyu stood up and walked over, introducing personally, "Father, this miss by standing next to senior brother Li is his fiancée and is one of the students in our academy." Ugh, Yuan Tianhua went into an obvious blank. He had met Murong Fei previously and in his impression, the sect master's eldest daughter was young sect master's fiancée. Not knowing where this young lass had come from, how could she possibly? Yuan Zheyu saw his hesitation as he hurriedly jabbed him. Yuan Tianhua then understood as he hastily said, "Miss Bai is really a beauty and standing next to young Master Li, you two are really a perfect match, an ideal couple." These words pleased Li Moying very much as his icy cold expression started to crumble. "Thank you for the compliment." Yuan Tianhua quickly added, "Young Master Li, please take a seat inside. I've already ordered the chefs to prepare for the banquet, so please have a drink before you leave." Li Moying had originally not wanted to deal with these idle people, but when he turned around to take a look at Huang Yueli, he realized that this lass was exceptionally obedient today and even leaned against him gently. The smile she had on her face was just nice, displaying the perfect role of his fiancée. His heart thumped. Earlier, when Yuan Zheyu was about to renege on the stakes earlier, he had already arrived and was prepared to show himself to demand justice on her behalf. But just at that moment, Li Shuai suddenly popped out and revealed the fact that Huang Yueli already had a fiancée. Li Moying's footsteps came to a halt as he wanted to know badly how his Leah would answer this question. The result was that he had indeed heard the answer which he wanted to hear the most. This little lass had, without the slightest hesitation, admitted that she already had a marriage agreement and even claimed loudly that she liked her fiancé and would not marry anyone else. Such moving words were something which he usually didn't get to hear. Even so, Li Moying knew that Huang Yueli had said such things today was because she had to deal with Li Shuai and Yuan Zheyu, and were not her heartfelt words. But even so, these words had pleased him greatly, making his mood a lot better. Thinking of this, his arms withdrew, drawing Huang Yueli into his embrace. At the same time, he said towards Yuan Tianhua, "Since Lord Yuan is so formal, then I shall have a seat inside." Yuan Tianhua was both delighted and surprised as he hurriedly ordered, "Young Master Li, please." He had already made preparations to be rejected, but he had not expected that young sect master would stay and attend the banquet. To be able to invite Celestial Light Sect's young sect master to the Yuan residence was an immensely huge honor. In the entire Sky Cloud City, only his Yuan family could get such an honor. Li Moying nodded as he brought Huang Yueli into the banquet hall. Huang Yueli secretly tugged onto Li Moying's sleeve, protesting softly, "Let's go back. I don't want to stay here to attend some banquet. You can also listen on. At this place, everyone looked at her as though they had solemnly determined that she was Li Moying's. This made her extremely embarrassed, and an indescribable joy which welled up inside. Why would she feel that being stared upon by those envious gazes would make her feel overjoyed? She obviously was not a vain person. Li Moying saw her adorable look as she minced on her lips and smiled secretly. This was exactly the kind of effect which he wanted, to let everyone see that this young lady in his embrace was his. No one should even dare to covet her. He had a straight expression on. Leah, I know you don't like places with too many people gathering together, but Lord Yuan and I are former acquaintances. Since I'd gate crashed into his residence, and if I don't even have a cup of tea, it is simply disrespectful. We cannot behave in this manner. Huang Yueli's mouth twitched. This man actually dared to lecture her on mannerisms. The person who was obviously usually more overbearing was him, but she didn't have the time to say anything before she was already brought into the banquet hall. Li Moying simply sat on the seat of the host, while Yuan Tianhua could only sit on the right-hand seat. Yuan Zheyu didn't even dare to sit and just stood behind his father. Both father and son of the Yuan family were eagerly attentive, carefully trying means and ways to get into Li Moying's good books. Li Moying, on the other hand, bearing an indifferent look, perfunctorily listening to them. As Li Moying tugged onto her rigidly, Huang Yueli could only sit right next to him as they stuck closely together. If it were normal times, she would have resisted all the way to the end long ago. But it was different now. Earlier she had declared loudly that she had a fiancé and their relationship was great. These were words that she had put into her own mouth, so if she were to push this man away, wouldn't it be akin to slapping her own face? At this moment, she began to deeply feel remorseful. Sigh, if she knew that this man was going to appear out of the blue, she would never have dared to speak rashly and used him as a shield. Huang Yueli had never thought that Li Moying had done this on purpose. He knew that Huang Yueli would only be intimate with him here and intentionally remained behind so that he could enjoy himself a bit more, to have the feeling of being a couple. Even though she didn't know about Li Moying's plot, but Huang Yueli was already becoming extremely embarrassed. Because almost everyone was looking at them in the banquet hall. Although most of them didn't dare to stare at them brazenly, but they would occasionally shoot their glances over. Mumblings could be heard on and off. She only needed to use her toes to think before she already knew what these people were talking about. Do you know what background does this senior brother Li come from? Why does Lord Yuan treat him with such respect? No, Lord Yuan seems to be trying to get into his good books. Isn't that so? Earlier young Master Yuan had been beaten up so badly by senior brother Li, but he didn't even dare to retaliate back. Moreover, Lord Yuan had seen his own son being beaten up and didn't even dare to make any sound. Instead he tried to butter him up. Senior brother Li's background must be extremely terrifying. Perhaps his from Celestial Light sect. Surely that can't be. Don't tell me you mean. Senior brother Li is a direct disciple of our main sect. If he really had such an identity, why didn't he remain in the sect to cultivate properly and ran to Celestial Light Academy instead? Who knows? But I'm making a wild guess. Look at his hand that had been grabbing onto by Ruoli so tightly. It's as though he's afraid that she would run away. Perhaps senior brother Li is here to accompany his own fiancé. You can also listen on. Sigh, I really envy Bai Ruoli, she's really got such a good life. She actually has such a handsome and strong man like senior brother Li as her fiancé. Why would a top-quality man like senior brother Li get engaged at such a young age? Why don't you even think about what kind of innate talent does Bai Ruoli have? Based on her looks and personality, earlier young Master Yuan couldn't wait to marry her back on the spot. For senior brother Li to fall for her. Isn't that very normal? What? How can young Master Yuan even be compared to senior brother Li? Didn't you see what happened earlier? Based on power, young Master Yuan couldn't even handle one move from senior brother Li. As for status, even young Master Yuan's father have to bow down to senior brother Li. As for looks, there's no need to even compare. I have never seen a second man who is as handsome as senior brother Li. That's right. It is just right for a peerless top exponent like Senior Brother Li to marry 17 or 18 concubines or even take in hundreds of bondmaids, so why did he choose to get engaged so early in life? No matter if it was a man or woman, all of them had an envious expression on their faces. Yuan Zheyu heard the discussions from the below the stage and his expression turned green and white, not to mention how uncomfortable he felt inside. Usually the person who had been treated like a male god was him, but now, he had entirely become a decoration and a stepping stone. This was the first time he had tasted such a feeling, and that felt really bad. Unfortunately, the person whom they were all praising was Li Moying. His powerful existence was something that he could not hope to achieve in his entire lifetime. He didn't even dare to feel jealous. Huang Yueli happened to be eating when she heard what the others were discussing, and she almost choked. What did these people mean? They actually felt that she was not worthy of Li Moying, and even said he could marry 17 or 18 concubines. What kind of joke was that? In future, if he dared to take another glance at any other woman, she would chop off his ***** below into 7 or 8 part. Humph. Stop poking already, this piece of braised meat is being poked until it's becoming minced, how could it possibly taste good? The man's deep enchanting vocals bearing laughter was heard beside her ear as a warm palm held the back of her right hand, stopping all her movements. Huang Yueli lowered her head as she realized that her unintentional action earlier had actually been poked with hundreds of holes on the piece of meat with chopsticks on her plate. What are you thinking about? Don't you this foodie usually love to eat? Why are you suddenly torturing the food today? Li Moying affectionately pinched her face. Huang Yueli was stunned as she instantly turned her face away in embarrassment. Heavens, what was she thinking about? She and Li Moying were in a temporary marriage arrangement only, so it was not possible to get married in the future. When she returned to Mu Chengying, Li Moying could get married to any woman he liked, so what concern was it with her? And what rights did she have to control him? She was really thinking too much. Huang Yueli slapped her chopsticks onto the table in annoyance. I'm full. So fast. I think you haven't eaten anything much. Don't you usually eat a lot? Huang Yueli became unhappy. What do you mean? Since when did I eat a lot? I'm not a pig. Her lips were puckered up, bearing an angry look, which made her look pampered and adorable. Li Moying wanted badly to kiss her, but he held himself back. When did I say you were a pig? You're obviously a cat. A greedy cat. Just as he saw Huang Yueli's stare and was about to explode, he hurriedly took up a piece of garlic pork ribs and stuffed it into her little cherry lips. These ribs are very tasty. Have you tried it yet? Try a little, amen? But this didn't stop their entire hearts from being filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli was caught unaware by that piece of ribs, and as she had no way to flare up, she chewed hard on that ribs, thinking of swallowing it down and continuing to give that man beside her a good scolding. Who knew that after she chewed a few mouthfuls, her eyes suddenly lit up. It's really tasty. Li Moying's lips rose upwards as he felt pretty delighted. He knew it. His little fox was a little foodie and was just too easy to please. Since it's tasty, then have some more. Li Moying took another piece of ribs for her. This round, Huang Yueli was much more obedient as she continued to chew on a few more pieces of ribs. Li Moying looked at her cheeks, chomping like a little squirrel as his smile became deeper. I cannot let my wife go hungry. Cough cough. When he said that, Huang Yueli immediately choked and held onto her chest, and she coughed for quite a while. Li Moying poured her a glass of water and he displayed a helpless expression. Eat slowly, I'm not snatching your food from you. You actually choked. Huang Yueli used her watery big eyes and stared at him furiously. Stop spouting nonsense, we're not. She wanted to say not that kind of relationship, but upon seeing Yuan family's father and son sitting just next to them, she could only adjust her words to we're not married yet, so who's your wife? Sooner or later you'd be. Li Moying gave a wanton smile as the well-defined finger swept past her lips to clean off some oil which had stained the corners of her lips. Huang Yueli patted her face, feeling that the banquet hall seemed to be a bit too warm. Yuan family's father and son were watching on from not too far away as they had already turned dumb as a wooden chicken. They couldn't believe that they actually saw such a strange scene. Young sect master, he He was actually so gentle and even knew how to make a girl happy, speaking sweet nothings and even fed that young lass personally. Thigh. This really was the young sect master that they knew. Even though they hadn't met Lee Moying too many times, but every time they met him, Lee Moying had a cold as frost look on him, and that overbearing aloof presence made everyone filled with fear from the bottom of their hearts, not even daring to show any signs of impudicity although he was extremely handsome, but many did not even have the courage to take a look at him. But now, what did they just saw? A young lass like Huang Yueli dared to slam the table in front of Lee Moying and even scolded him, giving him an ugly expression. Earlier when she slammed the chopsticks onto the table, Yuan father and son quivered, thinking that she was going to get into deep trouble. What kind of status did the young sect master had? Who dared to show such impudence in front of him? But the result was, this young lass was perfectly all right and Lee Moying had no temper at all, even trying to make her laugh the entire time. Not to mention feeding her food with that expression with overflowing pampering. It was totally different from the cold, aloof, emotionless expression from his usual self. This was simply two different people. Although those ordinary students seated below the stage could not hear their conversation, but they saw clearly when Lee Moying fed Huang Yueli food and even affectionately pinched her face. Many young ladies secretly held their chopsticks so tightly that they broke the chopsticks into two halves. Why did she had such a good life? Why was the person pampered in senior brother Lee's embrace not them? Even though these young ladies were very clear that even without Huang Yueli, a peerless genius like Lee Moying would not possibly took an interest in them. But this didn't stop their entire hearts from being filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. You can also listen on. When Huang Yueli was finished with the ribs, Lee Moying had personally filled a bowl of soup and holding up the soup spoon, he started feeding her mouth by mouth. In between, Huang Yueli expressed her objections and requested to feed herself. A reasonable request was rebuked by Lee Moying as he gave an evil smile. Leah, do you want me to use my mouth to feed you instead? Use his mouth. Under everyone's eyes. Huang Yueli's face flushed red instantly as she stared furiously at the man beside her and murmured out a word, shameless. Unfortunately, Lee Moying's face was extremely thick and didn't think much of it as his right hand steadily raised the soup spoon towards her mouth. She had no choice but to admit that this man was naturally graceful and elegant. Just an action of picking up the soup spoon seemed incomparably respectful and morally upright. Amidst the light vapor, his face revealed a hazy sense of handsome looks which made Huang Yueli go into a slight daze, being fed by him one mouthful after another. After she finished her soup, Lee Moying smiled contentedly, feeling that he had successfully stuffed his little fox full. Moreover, he had achieved his motive of displaying conjugal love. Just from Yuan Ziyu's disappointed and frustrated expression, it already made him very delighted. Lee Moying spoke out, Lord Yuan, I've already drank some rounds and since my Leah and I still need to cultivate, we will make a move back to the academy first. Good, wait. Lee Moying's clothes were tugged as the person who had cut him off was Huang Yueli, who was right beside him. Leah, what's wrong? Lee Moying rose his eyebrows. His Leah had said that she wanted to leave earlier, so what made her suddenly change her mind? Huang Yueli smiled. Young Master Yuan, you seem to have forgotten something. Yuan Ziyu's face suddenly turned white. What's going on? Ziyu, what happened earlier? Yuan Tianhua frowned. Huang Yueli replied, Lord Yuan, earlier I had a battle with young Master Lu Ziju at the Peach Blossom Dome, but after I had attained victory, your son refused to give me my winnings, so what's the meaning of this? Could it be that he is trying to renege on a debt? I believed in Yuan family, which was why I allowed him to be the judge. Yuan Tianhua went into a blank. What? Yuan Ziyu immediately rushed over and explained what happened earlier by his ear. Yuan Tianhua immediately berated him in anger. You useless fool. Why can't you even do things properly, embarrassing the Yuan family? Miss Bai, how could our Yuan family possibly be such discreditable people? What are you waiting for? Bring the divine martial record here right now. Yuan Ziyu was berated so badly and he was feeling extremely vexed and felt sorry for himself. Who knew that a young lady from a bordering small country was actually the young sect master's fiancée? If he had knew earlier that the terrifying existence behind her was Li Moying, would be even dare to renege on the debt. Don't say renege, from the start, he would not possibly even have any sense of disrespectfulness and would definitely hold her up high without any improper thoughts. He hurriedly took out the divine martial records and handed it to Huang Yueli with both hands. Miss Bai, this is the divine martial records which you wanted. Huang Yueli didn't stretch out her hand to retrieve it. Yuan Zhayu was left there standing and he felt extremely embarrassed as he raised his head to look at her. Huang Yueli sneered, "Why? Trying to use an earth-grade cultivation method to get rid of me? Are you treating me as a beggar?" Yuan Zhayu just realized that his action of reneging on the debt earlier had completely offended her. So now, not only did she wanted to get back her capital, she was also looking to collect interest. You can also listen on. Yuan Zhayu's expression turned pale as he knew that his Yuan family would probably had to come out with a large amount of blood. His heart was vexed to the extreme. Why didn't he automatically hand her the divine martial record earlier or follow the battle's regulations? Why must he act smart, thinking that he shouldn't offend Lu family? Now the result was, he still had to hand up the divine martial record so nothing had changed. He still ended up offending Lu family. Moreover, he had gotten into an even bigger problem, but now that he had already reached this step, he had no other alternative and could only admit his defeat. Miss Bai, your meaning is, how do you want us to compensate you? He carefully probed. In the end, just one sentence from Yuan Zia made Yuan Tianhua giving him a tight slap. Get lost to one side. What attitude was that? Don't you know how to speak properly to Miss Bai? I'll even things out with you after they have left. Yuan Tianhua threw a stare at his son as he felt resentful that he didn't meet his expectations. This kid, he usually looked intelligent and was street smart, but why was it that at this crucial timing, he failed to catch on? No wonder he had offended young sect master. He initially thought that he was the best candidate for succeeding Yuan family, but from the looks of it now, he probably needed to consider again. Yuan Tianhua hurriedly called out, "Men, bring me my 1,000-year scarlet ray vine and also retrieve 100,000 upper-grade spirit stones now. Quick, go now." Yuan Zhayu was listening by the side and his heart almost leapt out. He had not imagined that his own father actually took out such a huge fortune, 100,000 upper-grade spirit stones. If it was brought to the auction house, it was more than enough to buy a better cultivation method than divine martial record. As for the scarlet ray vine, it was a 7th-level fire-attributed medicinal herb and its value was originally very high. Adding on to the fact that this vine which Yuan Tianhua had was already of old age, it was practically priceless. After Yuan Tianhua had obtained this 1,000-year scarlet ray vine last year, he could not bear to use it and had considered to send it to Sky Emperor City to hire a high-ranking pill master to refine it into a 7th-level pill. Now he actually took it out as compensation? Wasn't this a little too much? Did he need to come out with so much compensation? Moreover, everyone knew that Sect Master Murong had the intention to marry his own eldest daughter to young Sect Master, and the young lass in front of them was definitely not Miss Murong. Although they look intimate, but if she wanted to marry Li Moying, the hopes were not high. Why was father not clear on the situation? Yuan Zhayu's heart seemed to be sliced as he wanted to say something several times but didn't dare to oppose his father, so he could only swallow his words back. Yuan Tianhua saw his son's expression and knew what he was thinking about and couldn't help but frowned. Very soon, the items he wanted were all sent to the banquet hall. Yuan Tianhua held the box up with both hands and brought it to Huang Yueli. Miss Bai, this fellow had offended you and I'm really sorry about it. I can tell that you're a fire-attributed practitioner and your innate talent is really high. Just nice that this 1,000-year scarlet ray vine is a 7th-level fire-attributed medicinal herb which can be used to supplement your condition. Especially right after you have advanced, taking a refined scarlet ray pill would have the best effect. Huang Tuili took a look at the scarlet ray vine in the box and her eyes lit up as she instantly smiled. Lord Yuan, you're so understanding, so much smarter than your son. Yuan Tianhua's voice was even more respectful. I don't deserve your praise. He had observed Huang Yueli and Li Moying for quite a while, and although those ordinary people only noticed the intimate actions between them, But Yuan Tianhua was not observing these at all. You can also listen on. What Yuan Tianhua was observing was the intonation and knowledge Huang Yueli displayed, the mannerism and how she effortlessly raised the mood. The more he observed, the more heart-rendering he felt. No wonder young sect master was so smitten by her that he couldn't even be bothered about sect master Murong's eldest daughter. Just from her shocking innate talent and that superior imposing manner could make one tell that she was no ordinary person. The reason why she could behave at will in front of Li Moying was not because he especially pampered her but because they were evenly matched adversaries. In front of a perfect man like young sect master, the other women automatically became shorter and was only able to be an accompanier beside him, but Huang Yueli totally did not have that kind of feel. When she and Li Moying stood side by side, that image was in harmony and simply too perfect. Just this alone, eldest Miss Murong was not able to achieve it. He wondered what kind of background did she have. Yuan Tianhua was very good at grabbing opportunities, and after he could tell that Huang Yueli was extraordinary, he immediately decided to bring out his utmost sincerity to appease her anger. Sometimes, offending a person of high ranking might not totally be a bad thing. After all, if one does not know any better, one cannot be held responsible. Instead, this gave him an opportunity to come into contact with her, so if he handled it properly, it might become a destined chance. As expected, Huang Yueli saw his proactiveness and was delighted as she flipped her wrist and kept the 1000-year scarlet ray vine and spirit stones all into her realm ring. This gift of Yuan Tianhua's had made her extremely satisfied. The 1000-year scarlet ray vine was one of the main medical herbs which was required for the 4th transformation, 49 phoenix transformations which she was cultivating, and she had been worried about looking for this. This Yuan Tianhua was really on track. Since Lord Yuan is so sincere, then the things that had happened earlier is nullified. For Yuan family to have operated for so many years in Sky Cloud City, you'd probably have to consider the relationships with the other families, and you're in a difficult position. I can totally understand that. Li Moying saw his little fox showing off her little fangs, looking extremely adorable as his gaze also started to turn warm. Along with that, he felt Yuan Tianhua was much more pleasing to the eye now. I've noted down Lord Yuan's goodwill. Yuan Zheyu saw how rightful Huang Yueli was when she accepted the gifts so immodestly, and his heart was simply bleeding. Even he had no authority to use so many spirit stones. But Yuan Tianhua was so happy that his eyes squinted from his smiling face. He knew from young sect master's meaning that today's matter was already over, and young sect master had noticed him. This money was totally well spent. The other students below the stage were so shocked that they couldn't even speak a single word. Yuan family's head. An extremely important man holding a decisive role, one who could produce clouds and rain with his hands. Forget the fact that he tried to get into the good books of Li Moying, but because of one sentence which Huang Yueli said, he had brought out so much money, such a huge amount of spirit stones and that 1000-year scarlet ray vine. Even if it was to a large family like Yuan family, it was an enormous expense. Moreover, when Lord Yuan did this, there was no forced intention on his expression, and it seemed as though he had gained some huge advantage instead. Huang Yueli was totally immodest, and her attitude towards Yuan Tianhua was similar to talking to one of her own subordinates. What on earth was this? They must be dreaming, right? It must be it. How did things turn out this way? Li Moying saw Huang Yueli keeping her compensation and pinched her cheek indulgently. Little money face, are you satisfied now? We should get going. You can also listen on. Amen. All right, thank you Lord Yuan for today's hospitality. We shall make a move first. Li Moying held her waist as he led her to leave the venue together. Yuan Tianhua respectfully called out behind them, if the both of you meet with any trouble, you're welcome to drop by Yuan residence to look for me. The Yuan residence's door will always be open for the both of you. The minute Li Moying left, Yuan Zheyu couldn't hold himself back any further as he rushed towards Yuan Tianhua with his face filled with anxiety. Father, how could you bring out so much spirit stones at one go, and even give away that 1000-year scarlet ray vine to that lass? No matter what, our Yuan family also have a Yuan elder who is of virtue and prestige in the sect. Young sect master couldn't possibly do anything to us. Moreover, although that Bai Ruoli's potential is really not too bad, but her background isn't good at all and might not be able to marry young sect master, a loud pah was heard. With his hand on his face, Yuan Zheyu looked at Yuan Tianhua in disbelief. He had always been pampered in the family, so even his father had never hit him before. But now, at the banquet in front of so many guests who had yet to leave, he actually gave him a tight slap. Yuan Tianhua stared at him. Useless fellow, what do you know? You don't even have the foresight at all. From how I see it, I must have pampered you rotten usually, to make you imagine that you're the successor to Sky Cloud City's #1 large family and unequaled it in the universe. It seemed that your cultivation speed had also slowed down recently. This will not do. From today onwards, you're to go into closed-door cultivation, and before you break through to the 4th stage realm, you're not allowed to have any more social interaction. You're not allowed to hold a banquet like this in the future. Yuan family's argument between the father and son duo was faintly transmitted to Huang Yueli and Li Moying's ears. But both of them didn't bother about it at all. By the time they reached Huang Yueli's courtyard, it was already evening time again. Huang Yueli took an inventory check on today's winnings. Just thinking about the short trip she made today with a sudden windfall made her heart leapt with joy as the corners of her lips curled upwards, smiling as though she was a little kitty who had been successful in stealing a bite. Little thing, you're smiling so brightly today. Looks like your eyes really opened wide at the sight of profit. Huang Yueli turned back when she heard what he said. Li Moying had already taken off his outer robe and just wearing a thin inner clothing, bearing a look which seemed like he was about to go to bed as he leaned against the bed looking at her with a languid expression. This piece of inner clothing was made out of wild silk yarn and the defense stats were very high. It keeps one warm during winter and cool during summer, but was extremely light, as though it could not hide anything. A large part of his fair, smooth yet robust chest could be seen clearly, and even the 2 spots on his chest could be seen indistinctly, looking extremely seductive. Huang Yueli turned around to take a look and her nose nearly bled. This man was simply too devilish and moreover much too shameless. Why, you? What are you trying to do? Haven't I warned you before that if you are going to spend the night here, you're not allowed to get fresh with me? Li Moying's smile was full of charm as he licked the corners of his lips in fascination, but his tone was completely full of innocence. Leah, what could I possibly do? Don't frame me. Have I moved my hands or moved my legs? I've only just changed a set of clothes. Don't you change into your pajamas before you sleep? Or am I right to say that your thoughts aren't pure at all, and the minute you saw me, you started to think of some images which you shouldn't be thinking about? Huang Yueli wasn't as thick-skinned as he was, and she couldn't win him in words, so she could only roll her eyes back. I've given you an inch, so you better not take a mile. You can also listen on. Li Moying cried out, what's called give you an inch and you want a mile? Leah, you're too much. Earlier I had played the part of a valiant hero saving a damsel in distress, but not only did you not give me an earth-shattering hot kiss, you actually said that about me. You made me so sad. Huang Yueli stared at him. That's right, I haven't asked you yet. Why did you appear at the Yuan family's banquet earlier? This man's ranking was so high in Celestial Light Sect, so how would a mere Yuan family be able to invite him? Li Moying laughed. What kind of question is that? Quite a number of students with status in Celestial Light Academy received the Honorary Association's invitation to the banquet, and since I'm martial arts stage ranking #1, although Yuan Ziyu didn't dare to offend me, he would still act smart and send me an invite. Huang Yueli shot a glance at him. A female? Li Moying laughed dryly. I think so. I think her surname is Liu. I knew it. Huang Yueli mumbled in dissatisfaction. To automatically send an invite to Li Moying, it would definitely be one of those starry-eyed female student. This man was simply too popular in Celestial Light Academy. What's so good about him? All he had was a set of good looks, and so many female students were willing to kneel down and lick his shoes. Alright, his mannerism was extremely outstanding. Alright, his innate talent was much stronger than other people. But was there a need to be like this? It sounded like the person who handed him the invite was Lu Zi. Humph, that blind woman, why didn't she punch her a few more times earlier? Huang Yueli pursed her lips in annoyance as she continued, you know that her surname is Liu? I don't think much of her. Just hand you the invite and you happily attended the banquet. She wasn't as beautiful as her, nor was she as strong, so how would Li Moying bend according to her will? Li Moying kept a close eye on her angry face, and hearing her sour words, he couldn't help but laughed out. I say, Leah, are you jealous? Jealous? How is that possible? You're thinking too much. Huang Yueli's eyes opened wide and she denied flatly. A terror formed within her heart secretly, with a feeling that she had been exposed. What was she thinking about? Was she in a position to bother about Li Moying's matters? She wasn't even prepared to marry him. Li Moying laughed as he stretched out his hand and grabbed Huang Yueli, who was standing not too far away, by her wrist, and using some strength, he pulled her over to him. Huang Yueli was tugged so hard that she lost her balance and fell onto the mattress, just nice pressing against his chest. Why, you. What are you trying to do? Let me get up. Huang Yueli tried to climb up but was held on tightly by him. Li Moying, didn't you agree not to get fresh with me? As the young sect master of Celestial Light Academy, how could you not keep your words? She used force to push herself away from Li Moying's chest. Li Moying laughed lightly and suddenly got close to her ear as he laughed in a low tone. Leah, don't be jealous. How could it be possible that I would attend the banquet for other women? I don't even remember how that woman looks like. But you still remember her surname is Li. Huang Yueli spat out. The minute she said that, she started regretting as she turned around and saw Li Moying gaze, which seemed to display an indistinct smile, and she wanted badly to hide inside a hole in the ground. What was she saying earlier? It really sounded like she was jealous, and this man had definitely misunderstood when he heard that. Luckily Li Moying knew he could not push her too much in this round. He actually didn't expose her but started to explain by himself. I had long forgotten about that matter about the invitation. This afternoon when I came back to look for you, I saw a young lady standing at the entrance of your courtyard. You can also listen on. I saw her acting suspiciously and asked her over to interrogate her. She was extremely anxious, saying that you had offended a woman in the honorary association by the surname Lu, and even ran over to Lu residence rashly with the intention to wreak havoc. She was worried you would be at a disadvantage but didn't know how to find you. Ah, that's Sister Su. Huang Yueli cried out in shock. Li Moying continued, Ian, that woman claims she's called Su something. Anyway, when I heard about this matter, I was worried, so I went over. Huang Yueli sighed, heavens, Sister Su simply loves to ask things and she's extremely naggy. She would definitely ask me what relationship we have. Li Moying indifferently swept her a glance as he emotionlessly gave her a strike. She won't question you because she had already asked me directly, and I've already told her that I'm your fiancé. Huang Yueli was exasperated as she snorted. Why, you, how could you go around spouting nonsense? Li Moying's expression instantly turned slightly sinister as he replied in an extremely annoyed manner, what spouting nonsense? Am I not your fiancé? Earlier in the Yuan residence, when you needed to use me, you said I'm your fiancé. Isn't it a little too quick for you to destroy the bridge after you've crossed the river? You're not going to admit it now? Ugh, why did it sounded like she was at fault? Moreover, your denial now is too late. Earlier at Yuan Residence's banquet, those students with some status in Celestial Light Academy had all attended and all of them heard about our engagement. By tomorrow, the whole school will know about it. It's too late for you to deny this. Huang Yueli discovered sorrowfully that this really seemed to be the case. Ari, why was there always a way to get tangled with Li Moying and herself? Li Moying saw her despondent look and his tone immediately turned stern. You little lass, can you let me save some effort? Can't you quietly stay in the academy and cultivate? Moreover, if you wanted to go to the Yuan residence, how could you not even inform me? Huang Yueli explained, I only decided at the last minute, so where can I find a chance to tell you? Moreover, it's not a must for me to inform you, right? That kind of level that Yuan Zheyu has, I can deal with him myself and won't be bullied. Huang Yueli didn't thought much of it as she talked on. The more Li Moying heard, the uglier his expression became, and with a flip, he pressed Huang Yueli below himself. Hey, you, Huang Yueli originally wanted to scold him, but on seeing Li Moying's gloomy like dark water expression, her heart jerked and shut her mouth up. This man, he really seemed like a natural superior. When he got really angry, even she became flustered. Li Moying stared at the young lady with love and hate in his eyes. This little thing was both smart and powerful. Even a man like him who had eyes on the top of his head often felt shock and admiration from her performance. But sometimes she was just too overconfident and he didn't know what to do about it. Thinking on, he started to restrain his imposing manner and breathed deeply. Leah, do you know that I'd be worried about you? I know that your ability is very strong and you have many aces which can help save your life. But I will still worry about you. Even if you just treat me like a friend, can you please consider my feelings, okay? Not knowing why, when this man acted overbearing, Huang Yueli felt that she could resist against him with some underlying power. But once he relaxed his stance, Huang Yueli felt as though she had done something wrong to him and started feeling guilty. You can also listen on. To be stared upon by that limitless gentle peach blossom eyes, she felt her heart jump, was unable to say any words of rebuttal and could only mumbled softly, "All right." Li Moying finally smiled, "Luckily I went. Otherwise that Yuan fellow's salted pig trotters almost touched your hand. You really, still dare to say me, I think you're apt at attracting bees and butterflies." Huang Yueli blinked her big watery eyes displaying an innocent look. Attract what bees? Attract what butterflies? I'm such a righteous person. Moreover, if I don't even get attracted to you, how could I possibly take interest in Yuan Zheyu, that kind of quality, am I right? Li Moying nodded as he felt more appeased. That's true. Huang Yueli took the opportunity while he let down his guard as she pushed at his chest, pushing him aside before flying down the mattress. All right, I want to start cultivation, so don't disturb me. Go one side and play by yourself. Seeing his little fox run away as though she was fleeing for her life, Li Moying's lips revealed a smile. Why was his little thing so adorable? Moreover, her sights was good as well, knowing how to admire his. Wait a minute. Li Moying seemed to have thought of something as the smile on his face petrified. Earlier what that little thing was saying was although she wasn't attracted to Yuan Zheyu, and he was much better than Yuan Zheyu, but in the end, she still had no interest in him. And he actually foolishly nodded along. He was tricked by this little thing once again. New top student by Ruoli and the mysterious senior brother Li was actually a pair of fiancé and fiancée. This heavyweight shocking news spread quickly in the entire Celestial Light Academy. It made everyone faint with shock. Besides that, the events which had occurred in the honorary association banquet was spread around as well, and adding oil to fire, the twists made it sound even more magical. Huang Yueli had defeated Li Ziju with just one move and leapt to martial arts stage rank 3. Not to mention that fact that Li Moying's appearance totally stunned Yuan Zheyu. Even Yuan family's lord had automatically appeared and tried ways and means to get into his good book. At the beginning, some of them thought that it was just a rumor. But later on, as Yuan Zheyu announced that he was going into closed-door cultivation and really had not appeared for several months, did everyone seriously acknowledge this and revered Li Moying. At one point in time, guesses towards Li Moying and Huang Yueli's identities became the #1 hot topic in Celestial Light Academy. There were several hundred different versions, but yet no one had guessed that Li Moying was Celestial Light Academy's young sect master. This was because the disparity between ordinary students and a highly respected sect like Celestial Light Sect was simply too far apart. From then onwards, Li Moying had transformed into a piece of chewing gum, sticking closely next to Huang Yueli. In reply to her resistance, Li Moying spoke convincingly, "Stop the resistance. Now everyone already knows that you're my fiancé. Even if I don't follow you around, the result is the same." This loving little couple had attracted everyone's envy in the entire Celestial Light Academy. Every single time they appeared in the academy, they could feel all the envious and jealous gazes from all around them. This couple, no matter male or female, both were so powerful and their innate talent had already crushed the same level generation of Celestial Light Academy. Their CP level was so high and their relation was so close as well. They were both so young but had already met and gotten engaged with each other who could grow up together. This not only made others feel the lack of being envious, but could only lament that comparing one to another, why was there such a huge difference? You can also listen on. Celestial Light Sect, Rear Mountain. Jiang Tuxin took quick steps as he rushed into the sect. On his way, quite a number of people recognized him. Principal Jiang, what's going on? How come you're back at the sect at this kind of timing? I'm not too sure too. I received an urgent recall message from Sect Master and hurried back to our sect. Has something major happened to the sect? Ah, how could that be? How come I didn't hear anything about this? Jiang Tuxin ran into the main hall confused, but he didn't see Sect Master Murong. Only a beautiful young lady sat on the chair, holding up a cup of tea, with an expression bearing that she had been waiting for a rather long time. Jiang Tuxin was stunned. Eldest young miss, how come you are here? May I ask? Sect Master Murong Fei cut short his sentence. Principal Jiang, are you looking for my father? But the one who had issued you with the recall message is me, not my father. Ah! Jiang Tuxin was even more surprised as this was the first time he had met with such a matter. Moreover, he wasn't close to Murong Fei. He had been helming Celestial Light Academy and had no association with Murong Fei at all, so this was the first time he was meeting Murong Fei alone. What matter? Could this eldest young miss be looking for him for? Jiang Tuxin started to get suspicious but still replied her respectfully. Eldest young miss, may I know what instructions do you have? Murong Fei didn't speak but just raised up her teacup and sipped lightly on it, carefully tasting the tea, ignoring Jiang Tuxin. Jiang Tuxin instantly felt embarrassed, but more than anything, a dissatisfied feeling instinctively started to arise. No matter what, he was an 8-stage realm practitioner and was an elder in Celestial Light Sect. Murong Fei didn't show him any respect at all. Even if it was Sect Master Murong himself, towards these elder subordinates like himself, he treated them with much respect. Jiang Tuxin waited for quite a long time, and since Murong Fei still kept quiet, he could only speak up. Eldest young miss, please speak your mind on why you were looking for me. A crisp bang sound rang. Murong Fei smashed the teacup which she was holding onto the ground, and the exquisite porcelain cup was smashed into smithereens as the boiling hot tea splashed everywhere. She sneered coldly, and with an icy cold voice, she snapped, Principal Jiang, I usually treat you rather well, isn't it? My father treats all of you with the utmost respect, and this is how you repay our Murong family. Jiang Tuxin frowned, not expected her to throw such a huge temper. Eldest young miss, what do you mean? Forgive me for not being able to comprehend, you're still pretending to act blur. Murong Fei's eyebrows stood up. All right, let me ask you. That little vixen called by Ruoli, where did she appear from? Jiang Tuxin went into another blank. By Ruoli? He instantly realized what had happened and felt that things were not going to be too well. Murong Fei's dainty face revealed a sinister expression. Don't tell me you don't know who is Bai Ruoli. I've heard from many that this wretched lass from a countryside is now in Celestial Light Academy, and she is so shameless that she actually dared to seduce eldest senior brother. I've also heard that she's so thick-skinned to assume the identity of his fiancé. Is there really such a thing? Jiang Tuxin didn't know how to reply at that moment. Regarding Li Moying and Huang Yueli's matter, there wasn't anyone in Celestial Light Academy who didn't know about it, and as the principal of the academy, naturally he could not pretend that he didn't know. As a matter of fact, there were many teachers and top exponents who didn't knew about the truth who had dropped by to congratulate him, saying this was one of Celestial Light Academy's anecdote. You can also listen on. In Jiang Tuxin's ears, he was crying out bitterly in silence. What anecdote was this? He didn't know what young sect master was thinking about, to actually appear together with Bai Liu Feng's daughter, and he also heard that he had admitted personally that the both of them had a marriage arrangement. But those who knew Li Moying's real identity were all very clear that Celestial Light Academy's sect master Murong had always treated him as his future son-in-law, and news regarding Li Moying and Murong Fei's marriage arrangement had been rumored for many years. He didn't know if sect master Murong knew that Li Moying had found himself a fiancé. Even though he was flustered, but no matter what an overbearing man like Li Moying wanted to do, it wasn't something which Jiang Tuxin could dabble in, so he could only pretend that he didn't see anything since he didn't want to offend either side. But who would have expected that even if he didn't sought trouble, trouble came knocking on his door instead. Murong Fei actually got him here personally to question him. Facing Murong Fei's piercing gaze, Jiang Tuxin deliberated as he spoke out, "Eldest young miss. Young sect master is indeed in Celestial Light Academy, but he only mentioned that he needed to read up on some classics in the Sutra Depository, and moreover he had some matters to settle in Sky Cloud City, so he needed a place to stay temporarily. He's not considered as an official student in Celestial Light Academy, and you also know that with young sect master's temper, I don't dare to check on young sect master's whereabouts. So I'm not clear on what he does in Sky Cloud City." Upon hearing such an obvious attitude on avoiding the important and dwelling on trivial matters, her anger arose. "Jiang Tuxin, do you treat me as a fool? How dare you actually try to be perfunctory with me? I've already told you clearly that someone had already informed me on the actual situation. Eldest senior brother spends every day in Celestial Light Academy and rarely leaves. Moreover, the entire academy's students all know that he and that little vixen had a marriage engagement. They also acknowledge that they are a couple. I've also heard that the both of them are staying together. Since the truth is so, you still dare to tell me that you don't know anything?" Her tone was harsh with a severe expression, feeling a burst of fire ignite within her chest area about to burst out. The minute she recalled her informant describing how loving Li Moying and that wretched lass were, she was so infuriated that she could not bear to kill that little vixen. Eldest senior brother actually personally stood up for her at Yuan family, and even fed her personally, accompanied her to cultivate every day. She also heard that in order to please Li Moying, some of them even greeted her directly as sister-in-law. This really was simply outrageous. She was the one who was a couple with eldest senior brother, only she was worthy of a peerless talent like eldest senior brother. That wretched lass from the countryside, she had obviously sent Sua Fangping to murder her, but the end result was she had not died and appeared once again. What's more, she appeared at the same place as Li Moying, and even brazenly displayed their conjugal love. The more Murong Fei thought, the angrier she felt as her right hand swept everything on the table onto the ground. Fa Lolo was heard as the tea set consisting of teapot, teacup and pastries were all swept onto the ground. Even Jiang Tuxin had a great shock. In his impression, eldest Miss Murong of the Murong family had always been noble and elegant, and she bore a unique grandeur of a large sect's daughter. She had always seemed gentle and refined, as though a fairy. Who would have expected that her temper was so ruthless? As expected, one could not judge another just based on looks. Jiang Tuxin suddenly came to realize why Li Moying liked Huang Yueli and didn't like Murong Fei. You can also listen on. Jiang Tuxin, listen carefully. After Murong Fei had vented her frustration, she suddenly clutched her chest, sat down and turned towards Jiang Tuxin. "Yes, I'm here," Jiang Tuxin responded in embarrassment. A cold glint flashed past Murong Fei's eyes. "When you return back today, find a reason to expel that wretched lass from Celestial Light Academy. It's best if you can cripple her cultivation and break all her 4 limbs before throwing her into the wild directly. I want to see that wretched lass disappear from Celestial Light Academy within 3 days from now. Do you hear me?" She clenched her teeth as she imagined herself tearing Huang Yueli into 17 or 18 pieces. As long as that wretched lass left Celestial Light Academy, she had plenty of ways to get rid of her silently. Otherwise, with Celestial Light Academy's tight internal security and with Li Moying staying close to her almost every minute, even leaving his shadow guards to protect her, if she wanted to harm her, it would not be easy at all. But silence responded to Murong Fei's question. She raised her head and saw Jiang Tuxin's indecisive expression and started to get angry again. "Jiang Tuxin, did you hear what I just said?" Jiang Tuxin replied her perplexedly, "I heard what you said, but eldest young miss, forgive me for not being able to do according to what you requested." "You," Murong Fei's eyes almost popped out, "I'm the sect master's daughter. Just asking you to expel a student from Celestial Light Academy. Can't you even do a simple thing like this properly?" Jiang Tuxin responded, "Isn't eldest young miss asking the obvious? If she was any ordinary student, of course that wouldn't be a problem. But Bai Ruoli is not ordinary at all. Even if she had no relationship with young sect master, she is also the #1 genius which Celestial Light Academy had recruited in the past 100 years. Merely 14 years old, and she is already ranked 3rd in the martial arts stage. This is something which was unprecedented in history. Such a peerless genius is not commonly found, and I must win her over for our sect, so how could I chase her away? This is a huge loss to Celestial Light Sect. I don't care about your loss or not. Celestial Light Sect already has a lot of talents. That wretched lass is considered a genius at that broken academy, but as compared to our sect, she's just so-so. We won't suffer any loss without her anyway. Murong Fei replied savagely. Jiang Tuxin shook his head silently. This was simply twisting words and forcing her logic on others. Such a talented young lady like Huang Yueli was extremely rare, and it was a miracle that she enrolled for Celestial Light Academy. It was considered as Celestial Light Sect's dog *T luck. He would really be dumb if he chased her away. It wasn't easy for a huge piece of cake to drop down from the sky and he had to throw it away. Murong Fei had stayed in the sect normally and probably didn't know how high was Huang Yueli's innate talent. Jiang Tuxin didn't want to explain to her in detail and only replied, "Eldest young miss, things aren't that simple. Regarding Bairoli's matter, I've already reported to Sect Master, and Sect Master also said that this kind of genius ought to stay in Celestial Light Sect, so how can I go against his command?" Murong Fei was extremely incensed. "Good, very good. You actually bring my father into the picture thinking that this can scare me off. I'm telling you, my father doesn't know how shameless that wretched lass is. If he knew that Bairuoli actually seduced eldest senior brother, he will absolutely not allow that vixen to continue staying in Celestial Light Academy." Jiang Tuxin replied, "If that is Sect Master's wish, then I will follow accordingly. But I must receive Sect Master's command personally before I proceed. Otherwise, if I were to misunderstand his wish, then I absolutely cannot take up this responsibility. You can also listen on." Murong Fei's face flushed red. "Good, so that means that you don't put me in your eyes and is unwilling to listen to my commands. Eldest young miss, please don't misunderstand. How would I dare not to respect you? Only I don't dare to not listen to young Sect Master's commands. He has already told me to protect Bairuoli. Furthermore, young Sect Master and Bairuoli's marriage arrangement was verified by himself personally," Jiang Tuxin tried to explain. But the minute Murong Fei heard how deeply Moying felt for Huang Yueli, she couldn't bear with it any further. "Enough, since you only have young Sect Master in your eyes and don't have me the eldest young miss, then scram. Don't blame me for not reminding you that since you dare to go against me, you won't have any good consequences." Jiang Tuxin hurriedly scrammed, and it was only when he reached the entrance that he wiped off the cold sweat on his forehead. Looked like he had completely offended Murong Fei. It seemed that he had gotten into big trouble for no apparent cause. But he didn't have a second route to choose because as compared to Murong Fei, he didn't dare to offend Li Moying even more. After the few rounds of interaction with this young Sect Master, he could deeply felt that this young Sect Master was a sleeping dragon, and by the time he awoke and flew straight into the skies, he probably wouldn't even care about the entire Celestial Light Sect. Jiang Tuxin self-admitted that he was no silly goat, and it was more than obvious who he should listen to. After Jiang Tuxin left, a masked man appeared behind a screen in the main hall. Upon seeing Murong Fei's sinister expression, he revealed a chilly grin behind his mask. But the minute he neared her, he changed his tone and gave his earnest advice. "Eldest young miss, this proved that I am indeed not lying to you, right? That Bairuoli had indeed seduced young Sect Master and even enchanted him. This news had not been sent back to our sect because Jiang Tuxin had been listening to young Sect Master's commands to strictly stop those people who knew about it from spreading the news to the sect. How dare this old fellow do this? He actually helped that other woman. Even daring to hide the fact from my father." Murong Fei clenched her fists so hard that her fingernails dug deep into her palms. "Looks like you are the only one who is truly loyal to the sect." The mysterious man lowered his head. "I do not dare to forget my origins, and naturally I am clear on who my master should be." Murong Fei smiled slightly upon hearing what he said. "Luckily, at least you are standing by my side. Since Jiang Tuxin doesn't know what's good for him, I naturally have my own ways to make things difficult for him. You only need to follow my commands and continue helping me to spy on them. I'll give you further instructions when it's time for you to make a move." Mysterious man responded, I am willing to be of service to eldest young miss. After the mysterious man left, Murong Fei leaned against the chair and looking at the mess on the ground, signs of jealousy could not be hidden in her eyes. Bai Ruoli. How dare you try to snatch eldest senior brother from me? This time round, I must make sure that you die without a burial ground. Whatever that had happened in the sect had not been transmitted to Celestial Light Academy. Together with Li Moying, Huang Yueli felt that time flew by quickly and unknowingly, quite an amount of time had passed. Although Li Moying was very sticky, but occasionally he also had his own matters to settle. At that kind of timing, Mo Yi would personally come to report and brought him away. Huang Yueli finally had the chance to throw away that piece of gum and moved about freely on her own. That feeling was akin to a prisoner being released out for some fresh air. This fateful day, Li Moying was called away by Mo Yi, whereas Huang Yueli was staying alone in her courtyard when she heard someone knocking on her door. You can also listen on. She responded, "Come in." Su Qingyu pushed the door open and behind her were 10 over people. Those people were that team of people made up from the small countries when she just enrolled into the school. Huang Yueli squinted her eyes and had already guessed their intentions for this visit. Su Qingyu said embarrassedly, "Sister Li, they insisted on asking me to bring them along and I was in a difficult position to reject them. If this really disturbs your cultivation, then we won't enter." Su Qingyu had not expected this herself, that after the last time Huang Yueli and this bunch of people had parted on an unhappy note, they still wanted to look for her again and even pestered her around for a couple of days. Su Qingyu was easily embossed and could only brought them along. Huang Yueli smiled, "Doesn't matter. Since you're already here, why don't the few of you speak your mind and tell me why you're here for?" Yu Xinyang walked upwards and faced her as he clasped his fist into his other hand and bowed before speaking up. "Miss Bai, the purpose of my visit is firstly to apologize to you. The last time we were here, we had offended you. Secondly is to thank you. That scroll of Earth-grade lower-level cultivation method which you gifted us previously had done us a huge favor. Lastly, I've come specially to defect myself to you. Would you please accept me as your subordinate and form the blood pact with me? I'm willing to be of service to Miss Bai." The minute he spoke, the 10 over people standing behind him started to respond as well. "That's right, Miss Bai, we're all willing to form the blood pact. Please take us in. Miss Bai, we had eyes but could not see previously and we've realized our mistake. Please be magnanimous and forgive us." When Huang Yueli heard their requests, her lips curled upwards and non-committally replied, "The last time I had already given all of you a chance to form a blood pact with me, but at that time, you had rejected. I said this previously, that you will all be back to beg me. Moreover, by then, I will not take you in easily." All of their faces became perplexed. Yu Xinyang replied without any hesitation, "Miss Bai, I am willing to follow you from the bottom of my heart. If you have any other requests or tests, please list them out." Huang Yueli then responded, "Since that's the case, previously I had stated the first step of my test. Do you still remember when I passed you that Earth-grade cultivation method? I said earlier that if you're able to cultivate successfully that cultivation method and also defeat the core student who had constantly been bullying you, then come back and look for me. So now, I want to know who had been successful in cultivating that manual." All of them looked at one another. Yu Xinyang and Su Qingyu were the first to raise their hands, and thereafter, another 5 to 6 people also raised up their hands. Huang Yueli asked, "Just the few of you?" No one else responded. So she spoke up again, "For those who had not managed to learn that cultivation method, you can now scram. I don't need any trash here." When she said that, those few who had raised up their hands heaved a sigh of relief, whereas those who didn't had an ugly expression on their faces. Someone tried to defend himself, "Miss Bai, how could you do this? Your requirement is just too high. That is an Earth-grade cultivation method and all of us had never learnt such a high-leveled cultivation method previously, so even if we could not learn it successfully, surely it's understandable, right? Moreover, you only gave us that little bit of time. Although our aptitude are much lower, but we're also willing to do things for you. Things like running errands or simple stuff like that, we're all willing to do so." Huang Yueli indifferently shot them a glance as she said, "That's right. The grade of this cultivation method is indeed high and the time that I gave is indeed too short, so most of you are not able to learn it successfully. You can also listen on." When they heard what she said, their expressions turned joyous as they thought she had relented, having listened to their thoughts, willing to take them all in. Who knew that? Huang Yueli continued, turning her words with a sharp twist. "So the majority of you are trash. This manual is something which I use to eliminate the majority of trash around. Scram immediately. Don't make me repeat myself for the third time." Her tone suddenly turned stern as her gaze became chilly while unleashing her profound energy, immediately suppressing all those present. Her cultivation was now at 3rd stage realm 9th level, and in Celestial Light Academy, only Yuan Zheyu and Lu Ziju were same as her, so her cultivation was an absolute crush on them. Adding on to the fact that she had defeated Lu Ziju, her fame was even more widespread and no one dared to belittle her now. Instead, the minute they heard her name, some even felt frightened. So those few people were so scared that they started trembling and not daring to say anything more, they hurriedly turned around and ran away. Huang Yueli turned her vision to the remaining 7 people, and as her gaze swept past the few of them, she suddenly gave a chilly snigger. She raised her right hand and a burst of fire attributed profound energy shot out from her fingertip. With a bam, it hit the 3rd male student who was lined up on the left-hand side. He immediately flew outwards and vomited a mouthful of blood in the air before he banged right onto the wall and subsequently falling down onto the ground with his face down, unable to get it. Everyone was shocked. "Miss Bai, you, this," Yu Xinyang's eyes popped out in shock. Huang Yueli said coldly, "Have I ever told you all that I especially hate it when others try to deceive me? Or did you guys think that just because I'm young, my sight is bad and could not tell whether you had managed to learn that cultivation method? He obviously had not learnt it and still trying to fish in troubled water. Does he think that I'm a fool? On the accord that you're also from South Yu Kingdom, I'm only severing 3 of your meridians as a small-scale punishment to prevent a large-scale repetition." The male student who was lying flat on the ground trembled. He had not expected that Huang Yueli actually saw through it. His luck was considered good as he was on the boundary of advancement, and after he cultivated the Earth-grade cultivation method, although it was not completed, but because of that he had advanced. He was thinking that he could pretend that his advancement was because he had successfully learnt the cultivation method and show himself in front of Huang Yueli. His scheme went rather well as he managed to fake it through. Comparing to those companions who he came along with, none of them could tell the truth at all. He felt that he was especially smart, so he didn't expect Huang Yueli to be able to tell from just one look. And she had not stood on ceremony in making a move, instantly severing his meridians. This thunderous method not only stunned the cheetah but also stunned the remaining of the others. Some of them had initially thought Huang Yueli was still young and wanted to deceive her. But now all of them were shocked beyond words, feeling lucky that they didn't go ahead and stood out like that. Otherwise the person who was seriously injured now would be themselves. Huang Yueli got Su Qingyu to remove this person before continuing. "Alright, now that the flies have now been thrown out, the second question is, have you managed to defeat that core student who had been bullying you?" All of them nodded their heads. Huang Yueli questioned again, who was it who defeated him? This time, after the earlier incident, no one dared to lie to raise their own standing as all of them turned to look towards Yu Xinyang. Yu Xinyang raised his head and setting his eyes onto Huang Yueli, "It was me. I had sent Jiang Hongyi a battle challenger in the martial arts stage 3 days ago and defeated him successfully. You can also listen on." Huang Yueli accessed him from head to toe as she revealed some deep thoughts. Su Qingyu saw that she kept silence and stood up to add on, "Sister Li, junior brother Yu is indeed a rough diamond. Among the few of us, he was the first one to successfully learn this Earth-grade cultivation method. Moreover, he had proposed the battle towards Jiang Hongyi. What's more, junior brother Yu was still a 2nd stage realm 9th level practitioner some days ago, but now he had successfully advanced into 3rd stage realm." Huang Yueli raised her brows as she laughed. "Sister Su, you're rather quick to speak on behalf of senior brother Yu." Su Qingyu immediately blushed as she continued on, "Sister Li, I'm speaking the truth. I'm just afraid you'd miss a talent." Huang Yueli nodded, "I know. And you probably couldn't tell that not only had senior brother Yu learnt that cultivation method, he even has managed to accomplish some gains on the second level of the cultivation method. This innate talent and comprehension is indeed not bad at all. A joyous expression shone on Yu Xinyang's face. He had not expected Huang Yueli's sight to be so sensitive. He had originally intended to say that he had successfully refined the second level of the cultivation method if he was rejected, as an ace to make Huang Yueli change her mind. But he had not expected Huang Yueli to be able to tell. In this way, not only had he managed to avoid blowing his own trumpet, he had also once again saw for himself Huang Yueli's ability and insight. This strengthened his determination to follow her. Yes, Miss Bai is correct. I've indeed successfully refined the second level of the cultivation method. Huang Yueli nodded and suddenly changed the topic as she asked, Senior brother Yu, have you considered carefully on whether to follow me? You must think carefully because once you've decided, it will mean that you need to form at least a 10-year blood pact with me. Furthermore, you must take orders from me and listen to all my command. I've already decided, which is why I came today. Yu Xinyang replied hastily. Huang Yueli asked, really? Is it worth it to make such a huge sacrifice? Senior brother Yu, why on earth would you agree to such harsh conditions of mine? The atmosphere went into a deep silence the minute she said those words. This question was somewhat too sensitive and extremely difficult to answer. If one were to reply that he was smitten by her glamour and willing to follow her, that would be too fake. But if one was to reply because of the cultivation method resources that she had on hand and so superficial, so Huang Yueli would probably not be happy to hear that. Those standing towards the back were feeling rather lucky that they were not the first to be questioned. Otherwise they really didn't know how to reply. They all shot their gazes towards Yu Xinyang, waiting to hear how he would respond. Yu Xinyang paused for a short period of time, but very quickly, he revealed a resolute expression. Miss Bai, I believe that nothing can be hidden from you and I have no wish to lie to you. The reason why I'm willing to follow you is mainly because you're powerful enough, and further, you have the cultivation methods and profound skills which I dream of having. If I don't follow you, I'd probably not be able to find any other chances in Celestial Light Academy, and I am not reconciled to just drift along for these 5 years. I want to become stronger. Huang Yueli didn't look at him, instead her finger was playing with a set of teacup lying on the table. Yu Xinyang continued, but the main reason why I made this final decision was because of your bearing. In the past, it's not like there hadn't been any core student who came to recruit me, but only you had directly thrown out an Earth-grade cultivation method manual. With this kind of style, it made my understood that if I'm loyal enough, I will be able to obtain the things I want from you. You can also listen on. When Yu Xinyang spoke his mind, the few of them around him had their eyes wide open, feeling that he turned muddled. Although everyone were here for cultivation methods, but those with a bit of sense would not easily say these out. He actually, really, said that. What they should do now was to praise Huang Yueli to the skies and say out some flatters which even they could not believe it themselves. The more resounding the flatter the better. This Yu Xinyang. Usually he was very straight, but now he was even straighter. Did water enter his brain? Huang Yueli's lips curled upwards but not revealing a smile. Senior brother Yu, you're indeed a smart one. And further, an honest person. Yu Xinyang continued stably, those words of hypocrite has no meaning. I don't know how to lie and I'm willing to form the blood pact. This indeed consists of my own motives, but as I'm a man of my words, as long as Miss Bai is willing to take me in, I'll follow your wishes seriously and absolutely will not have any ideas of betrayal. No matter how tough your requests are, I will definitely settle it for you. Huang Yueli looked at him deeply, as though she was trying to judge the authenticity in his words. Moments later, she revealed a smile. Just nice. I like smart people, and more than that, I like honest people. Yu Xinyang turned joyous. Miss Bai, does that mean you're willing to take me in? Huang Yueli nodded her head. Since you are so sincere, then let's form the blood pact on the spot. The reason why she was willing to take in Yu Xinyang was because he was an honest person. Huang Yueli was not afraid of his desires because no matter if he wanted cultivation methods or profound armaments, she was able to satisfy his needs, as long as she had his absolute loyalty. Honestly was her greatest demand. Yu Xinyang nodded his head in anticipation. The two of them made a slit on their fingertips and with a slight flick, a drop of blood soared into the sky. Under the control of her profound energy, a small drip of blood spread out, drawing a streak of red trace in the sky, and following the movements of her profound energy, it drew out a special array rune. Within 3 breaths timing, the array pattern was formed. With a point of her finger, Yu Xinyang's blood on his finger integrated into the array pattern, and after that, he fell onto the middle of his forehead. Yu Xinyang felt a scorching pain on his forehead, but after a short moment, it faded away. He touched his forehead and a special feeling rose in his heart. This blood pact was successfully formed like that. Everyone were absorbed into the scenario as they went into a daze. Forming a blood pact was actually a cumbersome matter, as it required the integration of both parties' blood and requiring some special skill to tie up the process. Most practitioners under 5th stage realm didn't have enough concentration to be able to form their own blood pact and would normally require the assistance of some profound armament. But Huang Yueli managed to complete it so easily. After the blood pact was successfully formed, Yu Xinyang prostrated onto the ground and kowtowed towards Huang Yueli. Your subordinate Yu Xinyang pays his respect to master. Huang Yueli replied, don't address me as master, it sounds so awkward. In future just address me as third miss will do. Yes. Yu Xinyang hurried responded. Huang Yueli spoke again. Since you're my first subordinate forming a blood pact, it is considered as a form of fate. Furthermore, I admire your honesty, so I'm going to give you a present as a gesture of our first meeting. Saying that, she flipped her fingers around and retrieved a piece of profound armament from her interspatial ring. This, upon seeing the item in her hand, Yu Xinyang's eyeballs almost dropped out from its sockets. You can also listen on. This was actually a 5th tier lower grade curved blade. Yu Xinyang was a practitioner who used curved blades, and a high tier curved blade naturally was something that he dreamt of acquiring. But, in his mind, a 3rd tier profound armament was already pretty good because he wasn't able to afford it at all. In order to exchange for a 3rd tier upper grade curved blade in Celestial Light Academy's profound weapon chambers, he had saved up all his star currency for the past 2 years, but it just wasn't enough. And now, with a flick of her wrist, Huang Yueli actually brought out a piece of 5th tier lower grade curved blade. Who would you define as a tycoon? She was. They had already heard that earlier in the welcoming banquet held at Yuan residence, Huang Yueli displayed an entire set of 5th tier lower grade flying daggers and cheated Lu Ziju till he even lost his pants. At that moment, everyone was already lamenting how wealthy she was. But now she brought out yet another 5th tier profound weapon. In that instance, all of them didn't know how to react. Huang Yueli stretched her hand outwards and stroked the shaft of the curved blade as she sighed emotionally. The materials used in this curved blade isn't too bad. Scarlet iron crystal granules had been added into it, and the toughness has long surpassed same-tiered profound weapons. The most important thing about the curved blade is its toughness, so although this profound weapons tier is slightly off, but the ease of use shouldn't be too bad, so just bear with this for now. Saying that, she put the curved blade back into its scabbard and passed it to Yu Xinyang. Yu Xinyang didn't held out his hand to receive it because he had already become immobile, standing in a daze, unable to speak a single word. This surprise was a little too huge, just like a huge cake falling down from the sky, crashing right onto his head till he went into a daze. He unbelievably said, Third miss, are you mistaken? This is a 5th tier lower grade profound weapon. 5th tier lower grade, what concept was that? Lu Ziju had to use a copy of his family heirloom's cultivation method to match the value of Huang Yueli's flying dagger set. Even amongst those large families, only those VIPs in those families had the chance to use such a high-leveled profound armament, and among the Academy's younger generation students, even those top 10 martial arts stage students could not even dream of having it. Yet Huang Yueli actually gave such a profound weapon to him as a gift. He was just her servant. Instead of keeping such a good thing for herself or using it to exchange money, she actually gave it to a servant. Normal people wouldn't do this at all. At this moment, Yu Xinyang was more shocked than overjoyed, as the only thought he had on his mind was this new master of his had definitely got it wrong. However, Huang Yueli gave an indifferent smile as she continued, I'm not an idiot, so would I not know what grade of profound armament have I taken out? Don't worry, I mean it when I say it's a gift for you. A small thing like this is nothing to me. This, Yu Xinyang was still hesitating. What's going on now? Didn't you just swear your allegiance to me and now you're ignoring my first command? Your subordinate doesn't dare to. Thank you, third miss. Hearing this, Yu Xinyang didn't dare to shirk any further and hurriedly accepted that curved blade. Admiring the exquisite array patterns on that curved blade, both of his hands trembled non-stop. Such a superb profound armament, he felt that it was his entire lifetime's glory if he could even just have a touch. And now he actually had the chance to obtain one piece. He felt that his eyes were starting to moisten up. Third miss, your subordinate will definitely double up my efforts to repay you for your gratitude towards me and be of service to you. Behind Yu Xinyang were those who had came along with him, and every single one of them revealed an envious expression. You can also listen on. They all felt that Yu Xinyang's luck was just a little too good. Earlier when Huang Yueli raised her questions, he had obviously given such a terrible reply. Simply could be said that he didn't even use his brain while answering. In the end, Huang Yueli actually liked such truthful words, and not only did she took him in, she even gave him so much advantages. Actually, before coming here, Yu Xinyang was the only one who was bent on forming the blood pact with Huang Yueli, and the others merely followed along with the thought of being a spectator. They all felt that to swear their allegiance to Huang Yueli was doable, but to form a blood pact wasn't a small matter at all. It was equivalent to putting their lives into the other party's hand. So at the very beginning, it was only Yu Xinyang who kept talking, and they were just hiding on one side watching, thinking to act as the circumstances demanded. In the end, who would have expected that Yu Xinyang, being the first person to form the blood pact, to actually obtain such heavenly benefit? 5th tier lower grade profound armament. What kinda dogsha *T luck was this? In order to win this subordinate over, Huang Yueli had really threw in a large sum of money. If they knew that being the first one to form a blood pact would be able to gain such benefits, they would have grabbed this opportunity earlier. Unfortunately, no one had the ability to foresee what would happen, so they could only let Yu Xinyang, that lucky fellow, to gain all the advantages. The few of them were still thinking of this just as they saw Huang Yueli move her hand again and brought out more stuff from her interspatial ring. Besides profound weapon, here is a set of 4th tier profound armor. Don't assume that this grade is low and it's worthless. In actual fact, this is an entire set. Under the circumstances that you are fully equipped, your defense power will be doubled. Besides these, the set of Earth grade cultivation method that I had given you the other time only states the contents of the first 2 levels. Since you've already mastered it, I shall give you the next 4 levels as well. I have here a set of profound skill for curved blade moves, and this is also Earth grade lower level. If you're able to master it, along with the curved blade that I've given you, your attack power will definitely increase by several notches. As Huang Yueli took every single piece of item out from her interspatial ring, she kept explaining each and every one of it to Yu Xinyang. Every single piece she took out surprised everyone. By the time she had taken out everything, the others were not only shocked, they also felt that they must be dreaming. Right, it must be a dream. Otherwise, how could such an abnormal thing happen? This, Yu Xinyang became completely speechless. Earlier when Huang Yueli gave him that curved blade, he already felt overwhelmed by favor from her and couldn't wait to offer his own life in sacrifice. But that was only just an appetizer. There were even more surprises at the back, so much that he felt that he wasn't able to take it any further. How could there be someone who was so rich? This was simply beyond his imagination. He prostrated to the ground as he cried out, "Third miss, these things are simply too expensive. Your subordinate's cultivation is very lowly, and moreover, I have yet to do anything for third miss, so taking these things really make me feel guilty. I beg third miss to please reclaim it back." Hearing what he said, the others standing behind him were all scolding him as a fool secretly in their hearts. Such a good opportunity to get rich, and he still pushed it back. They were all so envious that they could die, alright? But yet Huang Yueli's reply was, "You are indeed not worthy of these items yet, so these are on loan to you temporarily. My demand is you must, within the next 3 months, Master that Earth-grade cultivation method and raise your cultivation to 3rd stage realm 3rd level. Simultaneously, you must enter the top 50 of martial arts stage. If you're not able to fulfill any of these, that means you're a trash not worthy of my investment. So these things, I will reclaim it back totally. Do you understand what I just said? You can also listen on. Yu Xinyang finally understood what she meant as he hastily responded, "Yes, your subordinate understand. I will definitely not disappoint 3rd miss expectations." Yu Xinyang himself was a 5th grade talent and wasn't considered too bad at all. Plus the fact that his power of comprehension was very high, so he originally had high hopes of becoming a core student. Unfortunately, his birth wasn't too well and he had met with oppression from Sky Cloud City's disciples, which was why he was reduced to today's state. Now that Hua Guoli had given him cultivation methods, profound armament, pills, and most importantly, the confidence and opportunity to defeat the opponent, Yu Xinyang naturally wouldn't let it go. Becoming the top 50 of martial arts stage seemed like an unachievable target, but now, it was something which he was determined to obtain. Hearing the pair's conversations, those who followed Yu Xinyang here were simply jealous till they were about to go mad. They all knelt down at the same time and swore their loyalty towards Huang Yueli with great hopes that she would take them in. 3rd miss, please take us in too. My innate talent is much better than Yu Xinyang's, and I will definitely be able to master the Earth-grade cultivation method and enter the top 50s of the martial arts stage. 3rd miss, although my innate talent is just SOSO, but I'm very good at managing stuff. No matter what you want me to do, I can do it all. 3rd miss, please look at me. My request is not high at all. As long as you can give me a set of 4th tier profound armament, I will form the blood pact with you. A bunch of Celestial Light Academy students started to promote themselves, describing themselves as priceless, also that they would be another's servant. If any outsider were to see this, they would absolutely not believe their eyes. Which same-aged practitioner among the Celestial Light Academy students were not well-known figures, and all of them were proud and arrogant, so why would they be willing to form a blood pact with another person to become their servant? Moreover, it wasn't forced, but rather it was their own selves who stuck around her, afraid that she wouldn't accept them. However, Huang Yueli, who was held up into the skies by them, really didn't consider them at all. You want me to form a blood pact with you? Hehe, I already said this the last round. Since you've already missed the previous chance, in future when you beg me, I might not take you in. You've not even managed to master the 2nd level of the cultivation method. Is it because your innate talent is too bad or because you're not hardworking enough? Moreover, earlier some of them hesitated. Did you really think I didn't see through that? 3rd miss, I'm wrong. In future I will correct myself. Right, 3rd miss, I beg you to give me another chance and I will not disappoint you again. The crowd started to plead with them. Huang Yueli then replied, to take you in, is impossible. But I can give you another chance. In future, you will all listen to Yu Xinyang's instructions, and if there's any matter, he will relay it to you and you'll do as he says. I will be watching your performance and I will consider those who really put in effort. That bunch of people rapidly swore to express their agreement and pledge their loyalty towards 3rd miss, promising to do well in all her instruction. Huang Yueli gave a slight cold smile and not saying anything more, she sent them all away. She was very clear that among these people, only Yu Xinyang and Su Qingyu were righteous, which was why she treated them so well. As for those who swayed along with the wind, she was currently in shortage of manpower, so using them to her advantage wasn't too bad at all. But she would absolutely not give them too much benefits. The only reason why she had given so much rewards to Yu Xinyang in front of them was because she wanted to use this huge carrot to hang their appetites. To let them see the advantages that they would gain from forming a blood pact with her, so that they would use their lives to be of service to her. You can also listen on. Furthermore, these people could only run errands. Towards really secretive matters, she would absolutely not let them find out about it. Once the matters were completed, Huang Yueli was prepared to go out to look for a place to cultivate. However, after she passed by the entrance, she suddenly realized that Li Moying's main door wasn't shut tightly and the array at the entrance had been moved by someone. Huang Yueli's first reaction was, Surely it wasn't a case of theft, right? Mo Yi was called away by Li Moying early in the morning, so by right, he shouldn't be here at all. Huang Yueli's alarms started to arouse and she gently pushed open the main door and walked right in. Li Moying's courtyard's array was set up by her personally, so when she entered, she didn't trigger any mechanisms, as though there were no movements. Upon entering the courtyard, she heard Li Moying's voice coming from the main hall. So this man had already returned. Huang Yueli heaved a sigh of relief, but suddenly, "Young sect master, this matter concerns Bai Ruoli, so I cannot don't say this." She went into a blank as she recognized this voice as Celestial Light Academy's Principal Jiang Tuxin. Why would Principal Jiang intentionally enter Li Moying's courtyard to look for him? Moreover, he had specially mentioned her name. Huang Yueli's forehead started to crease as she just simply hid one side and started to eavesdrop. Inside the main hall, Li Moying's expression turned extremely ugly. "It's already been 3 days. 3 days ago, you had already returned from Celestial Light Sect, but it's only until today that you came and tell me this. If it wasn't because you had met with trouble, when are you intending to hide this until? Besides that, I had already ordered this again and again. Anything regarding me and Bai Ruoli must not be revealed to Celestial Light Sect, so how did news travel there? In your eyes, do you even see me as your young sect master?" Li Moying's handsome face turned dark and sinister to the max as his might was unleashed even without his anger, and the chilly intent that was coming out from him made the surrounding air froze. Jiang Tuxin subconsciously shuddered as his heart went into an uncontrollable tremor. Li Moying's imposing manner became even stronger as compared to when he first arrived at Celestial Light Academy. It had went up one notch higher. He couldn't have advanced again, right? Young Sect Master had advanced into 7th Stage Realm First Level just barely 1 month plus ago, and he managed to advance so quickly again? In the way of cultivation, the further they advanced, the more difficult it was to advance, especially upon reaching the 7th Stage Realm. Every single small realm they advanced, it was as difficult as trying to climb to the skies, but yet for Young Sect Master, it was actually so fast. Looks like Young Sect Master really had a bright future in front of him, and no matter who they offended, they absolutely could not offend him. Thinking of this, Jiang Tuxin hurriedly explained, "Young Sect Master, it's not that I intentionally tried to hide this, but only eldest young Miss's status is placed there, so how would I dare to casually gossip about her? Eldest young Miss wanted me to expel Miss Bai from Celestial Light Academy, and I had already said clearly that it was not possible and thought that eldest young Miss had no alternative and could only give up. So considering eldest young Miss's reputation, I didn't say it out earlier. Then what about now? What made you want to say it out now?" Li Moying sneered. Jiang Tuxin continued, "I had absolutely not expected eldest young Miss to actually talk bad about Celestial Light Academy in front of Sect Master and held back the original resources which should have been given to us. I also heard that eldest young Miss had intended to apply to come to Celestial Light Academy with the reason being to supervise our work." He carefully took a glance at Li Moying. "That's right, I also heard a rumor." What kind of rumor? What's with the hemming and hawing? Say it out quickly." Li Moying urged him impatiently. It's related to, Young Sect Master, you and eldest young Miss wedding. You can also listen on." "Wedding? What wedding?" Li Moying's face sunk. "Murong Fei and my wedding? Where did you hear such a rumor?" His voice turned extremely sinister, making Jiang Tuxin shiver uncontrollably. He didn't expect Li Moying to be so angry as he didn't dare to continue talking. "Explain clearly." "Yes, when I made a trip back to the sect, I heard quite a number of people talking about it, saying that you and eldest young Miss were about to get engaged. They were saying that Sect Master had intended to wait till you've broken through to 8th Stage Realm and pass the Sect Master position to you. But as he couldn't not be rest assured, so he decided to use the way of allying through marriage." Li Moying sneered. "Where on earth would such a ridiculous rumor appear from? My master, among the 9th Stage Realm top exponents, is not considered old and can at least hold the helm for at least another 100 years. As for Murong and me, will I marry such a woman like her? I still have debts which I have not settled with her." Jiang Tuxin had not expected to hear such things as he was extremely shocked, not daring to say a single word more. He had thought that although young sect master and eldest young miss were not a couple, but at least they were childhood friends. After all, they grew up together, but whoever knew that from young sect master's tone, he seemed to have some vengeance with Murong Fei. Everyone in Celestial Light Academy knew that Li Moying was saved by Sect Master Murong in the snowfields, and Sect Master Murong was his benefactor. Why would he go against the Sect Master's daughter? Li Moying didn't notice Jiang Tuxin's expression as he squinted his icy cold eyes, making a chilly expression. Previously, after his little fox had been pursued at length, he had been investigating this matter and finally found the person who tried to murder her was Celestial Light Sect's direct disciple Zhuo Fangping. But Zhuo Fangping and his little fox had no enmity at all, so there should be someone in the shadows who was instigating him to do so. He thought for quite some time, and among those who couldn't stand Huang Yueli and was able to instigate a direct disciple like Zhuo Fangping could only be Murong Fei. Of course, Murong Ni was also a suspect, but her status in the sect wasn't as reputable as her sister, so Zhuo Fangping would definitely not listen to her commands. Li Moying was already 80% sure in his heart, but unfortunately Murong Fei was very discreet in her planning and she had covered herself well after the matter. She didn't leave any single piece of evidence in the communication between herself and Zhuo Fangping. Besides that, she was also Li Moying's benefactor's daughter. Without any actual evidence, if he were to deal her with a severe hand, the result was equivalent to completely breaking the relationship with Murongda. Towards his benefactor who had given him a second life, Li Moying was filled with gratitude, so he must obtain evidence before he could confront Murong Fei with his revenge. After that, he also warned Murong Fei on this personally. But Murong Fei pretended to be a white lotus. Not only had she denied the entire matter of trying assassinate Huang Yueli, she even shed some tears of grievance. When this happened, quite a number of disciples were at the scene. At that moment, every kind of rumor between him and Murong Fei started to spread throughout the entire Celestial Light sect, and this had directly caused him to be unable to stay any longer in the sect. The minute the tournament ended, he quickly came to Celestial Light Academy to look for his little fox. Li Moying paused for a couple of seconds as he forcefully suppressed the rage within and said, "The matter you are talking about, I know about it and I'll handle it. You don't need to worry about the sect continuing to hold back Celestial Light Academy's resources. It's also impossible for me to allow Murong Fei to come and supervise your work. You don't need to go back to our sect temporarily, to save the trouble of being threatened by Murong Fei." Jiang Tuxin quickly responded, "Yes, I will follow whatever young sect master instruct. You can also listen on." Li Moying claimed, "The most important thing now is to find out who is that rat in the academy. To be able to pull off such tricks beneath my eyes and inform the sect about Bai Ruoli's information, this fellow has got some capability and his guts is also not small. We must catch the rat." Yes, your subordinate understands." Li Moying waved his hand expressing that Jiang Tuxin could leave now. But Jiang Tuxin's feet didn't move at all as his face bore an expression which seemed like he had something else to say. "What other matters do you have?" Jiang Tuxin hesitated for a moment. "Young sect master, you really don't want to reconsider the marriage with eldest young miss? Even if you don't like her, there's still second young miss." Li Moying's face sunk. "What else do you want to say? Haven't I made myself clear earlier?" Jiang Tuxin hurriedly added on, "Young sect master, I was only afraid that you don't understand the current situation that the sect is in right now. I heard that young Master Li had already proposed to eldest young miss, but her heart had always been filled with you and she didn't agree to it, while sect master also prefers you. If you really don't accept eldest young miss, then there is a high possibility that she would marry young Master Li. In this way, young Master Li will possibly threaten your position." The young Master Li that Jiang Tuxin was referring to was Murongda's second disciple Li Lingchuan. Li Lingchuan had always been eyeing the young sect master's position and had even publicly shed all pretense of cordiality with Li Moying, so this was widely known throughout the entire Celestial Light sect. Unfortunately, no matter in terms of innate talent, capability, or charm, he was totally not Li Moying's match, as he still had a long way to go. If Li Lingchuan were to marry an outstanding talented lady like Murong Fei and became the sect master's son-in-law, then his stand would no longer be the same. There was a huge possibility that he would be able to obtain the sect master's support to replace Li Moying's position. Jiang Tuxin was now thinking of following Li Moying, so naturally he would be afraid of such a matter occurring. Li Moying threw a cold glance at him, Murong Fei and Li Lingchuan. If they were really together, it would save my trouble of dealing with them separately. Merely a celestial light sect young sect master's position, it's nothing to me. In future, don't let me hear such talk again. By Ruoli and my matters is not something that you can question. Jiang Tuxin could tell that he was really angry and his heart wrenched together, not daring to say a single word more. But inside his heart, he was still muddled. Young sect master. Surely he couldn't have been bewitched by that little lass, right? How on earth would he protect her so much? Not even bothering about Li Lingchuan's threat and totally not considering Murong Fei's allied marriage? What was he thinking about? Didn't he knew that in the way of cultivation, it's not merely based on innate talent but also a huge amount of resources. He could only grow stronger with a huge backing like Celestial Light Sec. Huang Yueli was indeed beautiful and her innate talent was indeed outstanding, but she was just an orphan. Even if her father Bai Liu Feng had not disappeared, he was merely an 8th stage realm practitioner, and against a colossus like Celestial Light Sect, it was simply incomparable. Huang Yueli was just outside the door and had unknowingly finished listening to their conversation. When Jiang Tuxin mentioned about the marriage between Li Moying and Murong Fei, she became anxious for a moment as her heartbeat kept increasing. Even though she had not met this legendary young miss from Celestial Light Sect, but she had heard Murong Ni praised how beautiful her elder sister was, and how powerful she was. Moreover, very obviously, had been secretly admiring Li Moying. You can also listen on. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.